Welcome, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and as always, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. There are no reportable actions out of closed session. Are there any statements of abstention?
Standing on textbook review.
Okay. Jen?
I need to abstain from one of the second group of minutes
August 26th?
We'll just do those
separately.
I don't know. Think about it. Any adjustments to the agenda? Frank?
President Jay, I'd like to pull item E14, request for proposal for dairy and milk products.
Okay. Any board member requests for information? Ron?
Yes, I'd like to see if we can possibly locate 4 or 5 districts in the state that have real robust foreign language programs starting in elementary school or perhaps kindergarten or preschool. Just like to take a look and see what they're doing. I know that Sweetwater might be one of them, but I know there's some others that are doing that. Thank you.
Okay, I need a motion for approval of the minutes.
I'll move approval of the August 12th minutes.
Second.
That was moved by Director Carl, seconded by Director Pugh. Roll call vote, please.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Close?
Aye.
Director Hanel?
Aye.
No, abstain.
That was the one you missed?
That was the one I missed.
Okay.
Abstain. Thank you.
Sure.
Director Christoph?
Abstain.
No, you're good on that one.
Am I good on that one?
You're good on that one.
This is not the one we did last time. then?
No, you can say yes on that
August 12th?
Yeah, you're okay on August 12th.
I was here on August 12th.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll check my calendar. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I'll vote yes then.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Carl.
President Jay?
Aye.
Straight.
Student Board Member?
Aye.
Now I need a motion on August 26th.
Move approval of August 26th. Absent was Close, Gonzalez, and Pugh.
Second.
That was moved by Director Carl, seconded by Director Hanel. Roll call vote, please.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Hanel?
Aye.
Director Close?
Abstain.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Abstain.
President Jay?
Aye.
Student Board Member?
Aye.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. That was a little tricky. Now we move on to public comments of items not on the agenda. Members of the public may bring before the board matters that are not listed on the agenda. The board shall take no action or discussion on any item not appearing on the posted agenda, except as authorized by law. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. Should a member of the public have comments that pertain to a complaint against an employee of the district, the board advises that the matter should first be pursued using the appropriate district complaint procedure. Okay. So we have one card for public comment right now, and that would be Mark Kirby.
That's tomorrow.
Hello.
Oh, there you go.
Test. Good evening. I am Mark Kirby, Vice President of the Maria Creo Athletic Boosters. I'm here once again on behalf of concerned parents, coaches, and students regarding the poor conditions on the football and soccer field, as well as the practice fields at Maria Creo High School. As I came before you this past April, I asked the board to ensure that the recommendations from the 2014 landscape and irrigation assessment were followed to help maintain the fields while a long-term solution is agreed upon. Other than the use of an improper aerator and throwing some more grass seed on the field, which wasn't covered and wasn't watered, so subsequently died, no other maintenance for the field occurred. No broadleaf spray, weed spray, nor fertilizer was ever applied to the field. Additionally, there have been almost weekly leaks, breaks, and pressure issues with the irrigation system there. Yesterday morning, I reported to Maintenance Supervisor Manford that there had been no water pressure for the field since last Friday. Over the entire holiday weekend, there was no water on the field. He stated that he would have a team look into it, but as of last night, there was still no water on the field. I don't know if they fixed it today or not. With this searing heat, I fear that what few weeds are still living on the field may soon be destroyed. These continued maintenance problems and failures have created a situation that jeopardizes the health and safety of the students utilizing these facilities. 3 football players sustained ankle injuries just last week during the game due to the uneven and irregular patches on the field. Also, the main field will have less recovery time this winter now that the men's soccer season has been moved from a fall sport to a winter sport. Additionally, the track around the field is falling apart as well and is in need of replacement. Again, I point out that Maria Carrillo is the only Santa Rosa City High School not to have an artificial football and soccer field. This long-term solution needs to be part of the facilities master plan as soon as possible to have the funding approved and the planning begin, since it takes close to a year for the entire replacement to occur. As will be discussed later, $3.75 million for new door locks as a preventative measure for the health and safety of the students, that's a wonderful idea. But how about taking care of an existing safety issue that's injuring students right now? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kirby. Any other speakers? Okay, let's move on to Employee Association reports. President of Santa Rosa Teachers Association, Ola King-Clay.
Good evening, everyone. I hope this was a wonderful day for you all, including the people in the audience. Having a positive attitude, a positive outlook on life, and a willingness to share that positive energy with everyone makes for a better tomorrow. Our character is a key factor in who we are and how we work as a team. Our primary focus should be for the good of all members, as well as our students, our educators, our administrators, our district office, and our team leaders, the board. With that being said, I would like to give out a few positive kudos. First, to Mrs. Shields for wanting to reach out to SRTA and members in general. We know that working hand in hand will enhance our relationship beyond belief. Next, to Ms. Elizabeth Evans for her hard work in connecting with Gail Watts from CTA and offering CTA's unbiased training. To all our members, admin team, as well as secretaries, custodians, anyone who's employed with Santa Rosa City Schools. I hope that some of you board members will be able to attend one of these sessions, and I believe Elizabeth has a calendar of events. Do try to attend at least one. Last but not least, Steve Eichmann for his hand-on approach to dealing with the 5 new portables at Rincon Valley. I know that they will be totally completed within the next few weeks with real internet connections, real phones, and real bells. With me being in one of those, I know he is hard at work trying to get them ready. And to the board members who have spoken with me, thank you for your kind words in my new position. Now for members who are on the pulse of educating our future leaders. I'd like a special shout out to Sharon Stevens. She's at Pioneer High School for her hard work in developing a new energetic history program that will entice her history students. To John Saylor for his hard hours, or many hours, of preparing his students, both at Rincon Valley and Slater Middle School, to perform tomorrow night at their respectful sites at Back to School Night, in which I know some of you board members will be attending. And Carol Wagner for her positive energy to her new 6th grade students, majority of the class are boys, with a variety of learning levels. I'm sure she will be very creative. And I would like to leave you with these words of wisdom by a longtime friend, John Ash, who passed away about 6 years ago. And it's all about life and gifts. At the end of the day, if you have done the best that you can do, made the most of that day, cherished each moment, shared with your colleagues, then you have done well. And I know later on in this meeting, my close friend and colleague, John Cortopassi, will be addressing some issues, but hopefully you will look at F3, that deals with summer school. We need to get our hands on the pulse. Things are not running well. And then F7, lights at Pioneer High School. So with that in mind, as they say in middle school, when the admin comes on the PA each Monday morning with words of wisdom for the students, make this a good day or not. The choice is always yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Tammy Afonso here? I don't see Tammy tonight. Or Chris Fierro from CSEA Chapter 367? No. Okay, then we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. First and foremost, we'd like to invite everyone to our middle schools back to school nights tomorrow night. We're very excited to welcome families, our teachers, our staffs, our leaders have been hard at work at the sites, and we're really excited to have you on campus and see what the year will bring. Today, our administrative team had the great fortune of having lunch with students at the Arts Charter, and it is a gift to be able to hear their experiences, what things are going very well, what things they have concerns about. Locks on the bathroom came up, and we will address that, and what they love about their new campus. It was a treat, and I appreciate Arts Charter for helping make that happen. Also today, we have such amazing things going on at every school. At Elsie Allen High School, with the support of the Friedman brothers, we were able to screen McFarland for 2 classes of students. It'll be all classes of students by the end of tomorrow, as well as have the Diaz brothers here themselves to speak about their experiences, their lives, and the difference that can make for students. It was incredibly well received. I got to spend some of the time with the freshmen today, and they were very moved and engaged in the conversations, and I applaud the entire staff for creating a true learning experience around that film. They have a writing assignment, they have some goals to set out, and maps about the experiences they could have at Elsie to lead to their goals. It was very well thought out, and we appreciate the support of the Friedman brothers and the Elsie Allen High School Foundation, who have been tirelessly contributing to make sure every part of our community has success. Tonight, we'll be talking about the Smarter Balanced Assessment results, and I think it's incredibly important that the public remember this is a small piece of a big puzzle of the complex task of teaching and learning. We are incredibly proud of our teachers and our students and the families and everything they do, and we know that this new test, which reflects new standards, will give us information to move forward together. And we will look forward to the professional conversations that will arise from looking at the results and growing every year with this baseline data. So thank you.
I don't have a report to give tonight, so let's move on. There is no committee reports tonight. So let's move on to board member reports. We'll start with Director Pugh.
Visited with faculty at Maria Creo. Everything looks like it started off for a very good year.
Good. Director Christoph?
No report tonight.
Director Hanel?
No report today.
Director Carl?
No report.
Director Close?
I went to the Elsie Allen Ag Boosters fundraising barbecue, which is always a fun event, and just wanted to comment on the ag teacher, Grant Ermis, and his fantastic effort and energy that he gives to that program and to those kids. And I've witnessed it before, but at this event, he's sort of taken the reins to be the head guy there, and he's doing a fantastic job, and you can see it in the kids' interest and enthusiasm for what they're doing, and it's just a pretty special program, and I really give him a lot of credit for keeping the spirit of that program going.
Thank you. Frank, CSBA, NSBA report?
I have quite a few items, but I'm just going to pick one, and then we'll talk next time. Just wanted the board to know that SB 725 is the high school exit examination removal of a condition for graduating from our high school. But it's only for the year 2015. So I've been in contact with other legislators trying to see if we can do a retroactive bill that would go back into the past, maybe 2014, 2013, 2012, for those students who have met all their requirements but just never could pass the high school exit exam. And so I'm working on that right now with Senator Liu.
Sounds good. Thanks, Frank. Okay, now we move on to the consent items, and I need a motion.
Move items 1 through 13 and 15 through 18.
Second.
So that was moved by Director Carl, seconded by Director Christoph. Roll call vote, please.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Close?
Aye.
Director Hanel?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
President Jay?
Aye.
Student Board Member?
Aye.
Okay, then we're going to look at E14, and I'll turn that back to Frank.
Thank you. I don't know who is going to address it for the district, but well, now I know. That's good. With the request for proposal for dairy and milk products, I didn't quite see it, but historically we have declined to use dairy products that contain a bovine growth hormone because it's relatively controversial. Will the bid specs for our dairy products also indicate that we don't want to use that type of milk?
Yes, it will.
Great, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, Frank, do you want? I'm
Move
sorry.
approval.
Second.
Moved by Director Carl, seconded by Director Hanel. Roll call vote, please.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Hanel?
Aye.
Director Close?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
President Jay?
Aye.
Student Board Member?
Aye.
Okay, now we'll move on to our F items, beginning with a discussion item, interpreting Smarter Balance Assessment Consortium test results. And I'll turn it over to, Sikor, do you want to make a comment about this?
The test scores were just released today, so I want to first off appreciate the hard work of the data department, which really is one person plus some others, but Ran has joined the leadership team of the data department, and he and Ken Roberts and others really have done great work to get us prepared for today's session. We were hoping that the embargo would be lifted and we'd be able to talk about it immediately, so I definitely appreciate the leadership of the team and the hard work of the team to get this prepared in such a quick turnaround in a way that makes sense and is informative. So your hard work is appreciated.
Thank you, Superintendent Shields, and good evening, board members. I too would also like to introduce Rand Van Dyke as the newest member of the IT team leading data testing and assessment. As Ms. Shields said, the results were released at 11 o'clock this morning, where we got to start to take a look at other scores and other ways of looking beyond just our district, which we're still evaluating tonight and moving forward. For the presentation tonight, I'm going to turn it over to Rand to go through what we have so far from Santa Rosa City Schools perspective with a look at us compared to the county and state levels. So with that, Rand.
Thank you. So I'd like to echo what Socorro mentioned at the beginning about how proud we are of our teachers and the effort that they put actually in doing, pulling off the assessments this last year, and the dedicated work they've already put into making improvements and preparing for the future. And I do want to remind everyone that as we review this data, it is brand new. Not just the data, but the Smarter Balance test itself. And our student board member is a junior. She'll have her first shot at it this coming year. And I can't wait to hear what her experiences are around that. She's a senior this year. Oh, so you had the experience with how did you enjoy it?
Thank you.
She and I get along well. I enjoy tests as well. And as Socorro mentioned, they are but one piece of a much larger puzzle, so keep that in mind as we go. And yes, they were released to the public today. We've been looking at our results for a little while, but they're still new to us. So Smarter Balance is a consortium, Smarter Balance Assessment Consortium. It's the piece that we're talking about tonight is the computer adaptive testing for mathematics and English. Best to think of it as a computer program that figures out where you are. So if you get the question wrong, it gives you something easier, looks to find where your experience level is, and then increases if it needs to do that. It is aligned with the California state standards. It is college and career focused. SBAC is the assessment portion, and the California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress are a multitude of different components that are going to be used to assess student performance. We're pleased, actually, that Smarter Balance is testing critical thinking, something we haven't really done before in analysis. These are skills that are essential for the 21st century. By testing these skills, this exam goes above and beyond anything that we've seen before in California, and I'm actually very excited as an educator to see just how granular the detail is available for staff in terms of how their students performed. We're pleased with the direction, and we're going to continue to push for examinations that provide qualitative and quantitative analysis. In the past, if you recall STAR, it had 5 bands of analysis, or 5 bands of student achievement. They've changed that to 4 bands, and the red line represents students that on the left side that have not yet met the standard, and the students on the right side that have. So kind of think of it in those 2 terms. We're going to focus not on one or the other, but when we're looking for areas of need and improvement, we're going to focus on the left side of that line, and when we're celebrating successes, we'll be looking more to the right. These aren't good or bad, they're just a mark in time. The results that we have will help us guide instruction, they'll shape instruction, and they'll shape professional development as well. The information that we'll glean from this will assist us in figuring out what our next steps are. And in the handout packet you have before you, the second to last page gives you a sample of the granular detail related to these 4 bands. And there's a link to, if you're interested in reading about the other grade levels and the other bands, you certainly can do that. This slide represents how our students did as a whole. That's grades 3 through 8 and 11 in the English Language Arts summative assessment. We have the state in the dark blue, we have the county in the red, and Our district is in the light blue. Sonoma County's red. Thank you. Essentially, we mirror and mimic what's going on in the county and the state at a very top level when we take our students all in aggregate. Now changing the lens a little bit, diving in a bit, we're looking at grade level. And again, we see that we mimic the state. We're not, the state and the county, we're not identical, we're not necessarily stronger. This is information. But what I do notice here is the trend for us in English language arts is upwards. So as students progress from 3rd grade through 11th, the trend is actually an increase in performance. And what we're looking at in this slide are students that have met or exceeded the standard. So these are the students who, on balance, are either at grade level or above. The next one is a look at our subgroups. And this is important in the era of LCFF. An administrator site will have the ability to look at these subgroups and get all the way down into the student level. They'll be able to drill into actual students and see how Johnny or Sally did, find ways to help support that student. Keeping in mind that EL, the English language, the limited English, the limited income, and foster youth are not represented here. They're a small group, but we still have the ability to drill into each one of those pieces. And this will be some of the data that we'll use as we go forward in terms of adjustments to our local control accountability plan.
And Rand, for just a minute, because we don't necessarily have a key, ED is economically disadvantaged, EL is, of course, our English learner, and SWD is students with disabilities.
Yes, and that's, we're in the transition from one set of acronyms to another, and the state was using the old lettering and the county as well, so I stuck with that this time around. We'll transition that for future.
Yes.
A question about Native Americans. Are they too small of a population to track, or is it some data we can get?
We can look at that at our district level. Some of the stuff was not available at the state level at this time.
But it's something we could probably look at soon?
We have the ability to look at that with the data that we have in our data warehouse now.
Okay, thank you.
This next slide is, again, it's the same information in a bit of a different way. Each of the columns represents the 100% of achievement, and you'll notice the bottom two pieces are the not met, still haven't memorized all those, the nearly met and the not met students, and then the top two components are the students that have met or exceeded the standard. It's another way of looking at the same information. And this is just a picture of our district. And again, looking at this picture, we're looking for trends. And the trend is, over time, from grades 3 to 11, our students are performing at a higher level as they progress through grades.
In English language arts.
In the English language arts, yes. So far, the data slides have been related to English, and now we're going to move over to mathematics. Mathematics is a different story to a degree, and it raises more questions than it provides answers for us. So this represents all students compared again to the state, the county, and our own district. To the far right-hand side, the last two columns represent students that have either met or exceeded the standard, and the left two columns are students that have not yet met the standard. Taking the next level view across the grades, what struck me when I first looked at this information was that there is no clear trend. There isn't clearly evidence that students in 3rd grade, as they progress through the system, perform either better or worse. They're all over, and it also mirrors what's going on in the state. I would postulate we have a lot of information that we need to look at within the context of what's going on with the state standards in mathematics. So we have more study for sure that we need to do here. Again, I'm going to mention the drill down ability. So local administrators will have the ability to look at the data down to the student level and see how these subgroups, really it's all students, but as they focus their energies, how the particular subgroups are doing. Again, we mirror and mimic what's going on in the state, but there's still more questions than answers. And as was the case in the English language arts slide, this is a compilation of mathematics. So this all brings us to what are our next steps. We have not physically received the student results in our district office, but as soon as we do, we will package those up for mailing out, for mailing home. You have in front of you a brochure that was provided by the County Office of Education. These are in the hands of the principals. Many of them picked them up yesterday. We had to deliver a few. These are going to be sent home via student mail, that is the Sneaker Network. We are working on additional pieces of parent outreach. There's some really good stuff on the internet related to the CASP website as well as the state, and we'll be providing those links ourselves in the coming weeks on our website. We're going to continue to build capacity for California standards and associated testing. The technology enhancements that were passed earlier, along with increased access to technology that we'll be working on this school year, will assist us when we go to use things like the Smarter Balanced Consortium formative assessments, which are available. But we can't implement those if we don't have enough technology, and we're working hard to do that. Rick knows it's a regular conversation in his office. How do we get this to the sites now? The consortium also has a digital library where staff can draw questions. Again, they're electronic in nature. We need to develop data protocols, help us address these important questions, prompt the professional discussions that are already occurring, but now there's questions coming in. How do I do this? I've had questions already today from sites around these results. And what are our professional development goals going to be for the future? It is a brand new assessment. These pieces are part of a large picture. Grade point average is something else for us to consider. We've begun a diagnostic program called Let's Go Learn for work on how our students are performing in English and mathematics. Had a little bit of a bumpy go, but the kids that I've heard reports back from are enjoying the test. First graders didn't want to stop. They're excited to take it. So they're actually engaged in the product, and the information that's available with this same kind of test, which is like SBAC, is again, the teacher can drill down to the granular level. We need, of course, to look at attendance and behavior and how that interrelates with this information and student achievement. The 2015 results will be our baseline. They are a place for us to examine, explore, and grow from. And we do have a very professional and dedicated staff who I know personally have worked with for the last 12 years will grow and find solutions for students. Thank you. Questions?
Any board member questions, comments? Frank?
At some point, not, you you got plenty to do, I know. Not looking for another board report on it either, but it'd be interesting to see the breakout by school sites for SBAC for math and English, just to get an idea. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes. Jen?
Yeah. Is there any way to know the impact of our schools having less than stellar access to technology in the past few years on these scores? I know that, Rick, you're working hard to kind of bring us up to speed, but a lot of our students have not had as much experience working on computers and doing tests on computers as maybe students in other districts. Is there any way to gauge the level of that impact?
I don't know if there's a definitive answer to that, but obviously with familiarity with computing resources and technology provides, an additional bump, if you will, for students to not have apprehension or fear using devices for testing, which is, one of the reasons that we are trying to grow technology, as well as get resources to the school sites to have that familiarity. What Rand spoke about with interim assessments and being able to take those on I'll say on a regular basis, along with other assessment packages that we have, will build that familiarity with students as they prepare for the SBAC testing window.
I wonder if it would be helpful to compare the results from different sites that have different levels of access to technology. I'd be interested in looking at that if we can look at it that closely. I don't know if we have the ability to do that.
I don't know that we'd ever be definitively able to separate them out. I think we do have to purposely create a technological curriculum that teaches all students elements of being native in that field, whether they're testing or learning whatever's happening in the world of technology, and that has to happen across the board at every grade level, different skills that we recognize that are being intentionally taught. That is an element. There's also the greater element of the content itself and how we make sure that the standards in the classroom really are these new, as Rand was saying, the critical thinking and the analysis, that we really are taking our instruction to that level. There are many ways in which students demonstrate what they know and can do. This is one way we want them to do well here, but there's certainly other ways in the classroom with classroom embedded tests, classroom developed tests, projects, the thing that go on together, they create the story of teaching and learning in our schools. And so we do want to certainly dive into this information, but we don't want to overprivilege this information either as the only source of what our students know and can do and what's happening in our classrooms. So it will be a balance as we look at all of the data. We are trying to grow a system that can weed through all of those elements of data in a way that makes sense at the classroom level, at the site level, and then at the system level across all of our districts. And we will be looking at tools that help us make sense of this and then are able to act differently if we want to change scores.
Ron?
Thank you for the report. I can see in the future how, as we become better at collecting data and aggregating it, it's going to be very helpful for us. But I think it's very important to understand the great difference between what we're doing now and what we have been doing in the past. This is, as the superintendent mentioned, a part of a bigger way of looking at our students. There was a front page article in the Chronicle today. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions and confusion on the part of the public because, it's pretty easy to compare box scores, but in essence, this is not No Child Left Behind. This is the point of a huge seismic change in the way we look at students. This is a diagnostic test in my mind. That's why I'm excited about it, because it's going to pinpoint where we need to focus on each individual student ultimately. So even with the bar graphs and with all the charts we have and the statistics, this is just kind of an indicator. As we get better at it, we're going to be able to use this specifically to help students who have particular problems, and I look very much forward to that. But again, for those who are not familiar with the change, we're just out the gate with this new one, and it has a lot of promise, but these numbers for me are just a real small part of what we're doing in regard to that change. Thank you again for what you did.
Dr. Carl?
Thank you. I completely agree with Ron. The other thing that I think is important to remember is that this is merely a baseline. When it's brand new, you got to have a baseline. It's like taking a chest x-ray to find out if you develop lung cancer over a period of time. Let's look at it right now and see what it looks like. And since this is a whole new matrix and a whole new system, we now have a baseline within that system. What we're going to be really interested in looking at is what's then the improvement. And I have a lot of confidence in our administrative as well as teaching core to get us where we need to go. I think there's a real focus on that, and I think that in the end we're going to see some really good numbers as it moves out over the future. This is merely a baseline, and I've got nothing against which we can really compare.
Frank?
I agree with Bill. I don't believe there's any cause for alarm at all. This is just part of the beginning of a process. We went through a long process with No Child Left Behind. We didn't particularly care for it along the way. but now we're embarked in a different direction. So I'm encouraged by the baseline that's been created, and we know where to work from. It also helps us identify where to place our resources and better our students.
Thank you. Thanks for the report. I think you've heard from your board that we're united in understanding that this is our first go-around with this, and there's lots of room for growth. And we have confidence that that will happen. At the same time, we're not concerned about our results right now. We're pleased that we've gone through this process, and we're working together towards improvement, and appreciate the report. Let's move on to item F2, another discussion item. This is a 2015 summer school summary.
Good evening, President Jay.
Good evening.
Superintendent Shields, members of the board. You can see we have a very full table. Tonight, we're going to present to you the update on our summer school program 2015. Before they begin, I'd like to give kudos to Mr. Ryan Thompson, who has taken the lead for summer school this summer. He is just a budding administrator that I am so proud of. And so I'm actually going to turn it over to them because they worked really hard on this presentation. I will have a few comments at the end, but at this point, I'm going to turn it over to them.
Thank you. You're on, Mr. Thompson.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you for that introduction, Diane, and good evening, board members. Well, I'd like to say thank you for that. I can't take credit for that.
You got to hit the button.
Technology. Oh, thank you. So I can't take credit for that because, as you can see, we have quite a large team that worked on summer school to make a very productive summer. It was very productive in multiple areas, not just in the classrooms, but in the administrative offices too. And I'll touch more on that later. And each one of these committed, dedicated, hardworking administrators right here, and all the staff and faculty, and even student interns that worked for us this summer, were not able to make it, but these administrators are here to present their programs and the highlights of the programs that really benefited our students and families this summer. So just a quick overview. These are all of the programs that we offered this summer. And as you take a look through this summer, you can see that we really targeted many different age groups and many different types of students to offer them multiple opportunities for enrichment and trying to kind of attack or approach that summer learning gap so that when students, they go away for the summer, they still have their time with their families and their time away from school, but they don't lose progress on learning, and that's the key point. So you can see all these different programs offered a variety of different avenues to enrich learning and provide students opportunities. Some of the overall highlights, as we read through those, the one that I bolded, the fourth bullet point down, is that we served nearly 1,500 students this summer, and that's quite a lot, spread amongst all the different campuses. And that's a lot of students and families that are impacted by this learning, and we only hope to make that grow. And that's something we'll talk about towards the end of this presentation and in further board meetings, is trying to find ways on how we can improve and expand our programs to really reach out to more students and more families. Not only did we provide opportunities for students to grow, but also this team provided opportunities for professional growth for staff and teachers and faculty that worked in the schools too, allowing them to kind of reach out and take risks and implement new strategies in the classroom to kind of to provide those opportunities for students. Of course, the bottom bullet point there is a lot of these programs were created in alignment with our LCAP goals. for the district, which is, once again, that's our guiding vision towards everything that we do and how we really create, as you can see here, coherent and rigorous and relevant teaching and learning programs for our students. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to my team so they can present their programs. And first we have Valerie Jordan with the ESY program.
Good evening. So I was the principal for ESY Extended School Year, which is Special Education Services, and we were located on 4 different campuses. So at Burbank Elementary, we had 151 students enrolled. That was our highest, and that was an increase from last year to almost 25 students. In Santa Rosa Middle School, we had 46 students enrolled. They did weekly trips to the 3rd Street Theater. They did weekly trips on the city transit bus. They were all over Santa Rosa. And at Montgomery High School, we had our 65 students enrolled, and they went over functional academics, adaptive physical education. They also went to the double-decker bowling alley for APE and mobility training. So they run a city transit also. They offer a great program at the beginning of the summer school to provide training to all students and then give them passes for 30 days. So that's what they use to pay for that. And then at Ridgeway, we have our workability program, and 11 students were enrolled, and that's full. And they participated in job coaching and workability programs. They also created this year Chef of the Week, which I happened to be there one day when they were presenting, so that was great. And then at the end of the year, they did a hike at Spring Lake to just, team building. So I really enjoyed being the principal. I see ways to improve it. I also see that how well it worked and some great educators that got together. So thank you.
Just a real quick aside before we continue on. I just want to acknowledge Valerie Jordan. Last year, she worked with us at regular summer school at Montgomery High School. She volunteered her time to learn kind of the admin job, and now she just took it to the next level. And I know Lori Fletcher and I are just amazed by the work that she's done. So I just want to acknowledge her as definitely, also like Ryan, one of our up-and-coming administrators.
Hi, my name is Saida Diaz, and I had the privilege of being the Brook Hill Elementary Summer School principal, so I'm usually at Biella, so it was nice to guest at a different campus. So at my site, I had 66 students, kinder TK to 5th grade, ending 5th grade. One of the great things of working in conjunction with Migranet is that we were able to offer a lot of different extended and extracurricular activities. For example, the binational teacher from Michoacan, I want to say she was from Michoacan this time, but they usually are from Morelia. They come and teach art integrated through our GLAD units, which was great to have a guest teacher from a different country come and teach our students. We also had the volunteer center provide some volunteers, and they loved working with the kids so much that they took it upon themselves to buy books for our students. And after they did a lesson with them in small groups, they provided books so they could take home and really encourage literacy even after our program was done. We also had our state counselors work with our students that were at our sites, and that was very beneficial so that we can continue the services that we started providing for them during the school year. So it was continuum. And not just them and their families as well. Having the breakfast and lunch program served at our sites, we got to meet the families. They were coming in with their little ones when they picked them up, and we're able to engage with them and talk to them and see what their needs were throughout the whole summer. We saw growth in every single class. So to me, even though I felt like my summer was really short, and I've done this with Migranet for many years, it's definitely worth to see the kids make so much gains, especially when it's focused instruction, having them do the teachers integrate their GLAD units that they had been working on through the whole year and getting trained on. It was great to see the implementation, to see a whole unit go through, and then in math as well, being very focused, and so we could see the results in the test and the pre and the post.
I'm Michelle Smith, and I'm the principal of Monroe Elementary School, and we were privileged and excited to host 3 summer programs at our site this summer, one of them being the Summer Enrichment and Migrant Education. We had 145 students enrolled in that program. some of which were not the original students who enrolled, but who came seeking enrollment, some who also were part of the Parks and Rec who decided they wanted to learn in a classroom rather than play all day. So that was exciting. We had a lot of support from the community. We had the fire department come out, we had the bookmobile come, we had the mini corps who come and tutor specific migrant students who need extra support. We had the Sonoma County Water Agency who came out and did a presentation to our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade classrooms. We also had the SAE counselors who worked with students who needed extra support from the school year to continue through the summer, so they continued having that support. The teachers were excited by the opportunity they had to continue to use their GLAD strategies that they had been trained in, and to offer it with a different group of students who were a mix from all different schools, so they had a better gauge as to the student learning rather than just being with their own students. So that was an awesome opportunity. We loved having it. The second group that we hosted was the Cal State Teach Math Institute that came to our site. This was a group that was taught by student teachers with faculty to support them. So these classrooms had 2 teachers in training in the classroom, plus one of the Cal State administrators who were there to help them and support them. They had daily staff meetings after each of their days in order to review what had been going on in the classrooms. Some of the things that they did that the students truly enjoyed was they loved the math facts. That was the whole purpose of the Math Institute, and they focused the first week on it, but not just like math facts with flashcards. They did all kinds of engagement activities. They did kinesthetic activities. They wrote all over the blacktop with it. They did cat catchers, all different kinds of ways to help the students learn their math facts. And then throughout the rest of the summer program, they continued to test the students on it and practice the facts so that they could improve. They also got to do coding, which was a lot of fun. The students really enjoyed that part. They got to do the animation from storyboards that they had created, and they enjoyed using the technology for that. It was an incredible opportunity. The kids truly enjoyed spending the day focused on math skills and just all the different ways that it was approached. It was an excellent program.
And these are just some of the photos of some of the things that went on with that Cal State Math Institute, some of the coding and animations the students participated in, and then the egg drop that they did, which was kind of cool how they brought out the fire department and they raised their ladder up high and dropped and had a contest to see who would win and create the winning design that would keep the eggs safe. So
all the eggs were safe.
And so moving on to the Maker Camp, we unfortunately don't have Mr. Chris Meredith, who was the administrator over Maker Camp. He couldn't make it tonight. So I'll just go over some of the highlights. Maker Camp served 108 total students. One of the important things that we had this year was we reached out to TLT, Tomorrow's Leaders Today, and provided student mentors to be in the classroom and to help out as kind of like TAs per se, or peer tutors, to work with the students, work with the teachers, and also provide role models. They were older students, juniors and seniors in San Jose City schools, and served as role models for a lot of the younger students so that they can make connections, not just with a teacher, but with someone close to their same age. SAY clinicians were on campus to help. They provided, once again, teacher support with students, but also were there just to support students with other needs that they had. If any of you, and I saw many of you actually out at the Maker Camp, the showcase at the end, but Mr. Meredith was able to coordinate a 3D printing mobile lab that came onto the campus, and they actually had students go through a seminar where they were able to create and actually print out their initials from a 3D printer right then and there, so they had something to take home. And some of them participated in I think one person or a few people towards the very end got to do some laser cutting, which is, once again, they create the image on the computer and cut it. So that was really cool to see the students in action. And the biggest piece that Mr. Meredith introduced to this program this year was he brought in a whole student health and wellness component where he would talk to the students about nutrition and wellness and taking care of their bodies, and then also introduced sort of a PE component as far as getting daily physical exercise and nutrition, so that it kind of treated the whole student, not just mentally, but physically and emotionally as well. And these are some of the photos of, they took a field trip to the Sonoma County Air Museum, and some of the marble roller coasters that they created using concepts of math and physics and that kind of thing in the classroom.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Justin Booth, and I had the honor of serving as the administrator for the Move Academy at Pioneer High School this last summer. This was the second Move Academy which has occurred, and Move Academy is intended to kind of engage, invigorate, and empower our ninth graders as they're transitioning from our middle schools to our high schools. So we really had the honor of having so much latitude to figure out how to do this. So our team worked together and really decided that they wanted to help our students find their passions, learn about careers that connected to those passions, and then explore educational options that would get them potentially into those careers someday. So, for example, each student created a 4-year plan for high school. Each student explored a global issue and developed a TED Talk. Each student designed a prototype for a product that was intended to prevent pollution of our streams. All of our students built an electromagnetic generator and learned about renewable energy. We went on field trips to SRJC's Schoen Farms, which is where they operate a lot of their career technical education programs out of, and to the Solar Living Institute. And it was really amazing to see the students working together on some of these collaborative projects and hear the dialogue and the level of passion and enthusiasm they had to create these works. And it was really amazing to see. The students who finished got 5 elective credits, so they're starting their high school journey with 5 credits to start off their journey into high school. We had 75 students earn their credits this year, which was a 2-fold increase over the previous year, and we're just hoping to grow and grow and grow into the future. We've got some pictures here of students building an electromagnetic generator, students using some of the tools, and then the picture on the right, you see students who were at the Solar Living Institute learning about renewable building materials. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lori Fletcher, and this is?
I'm Dr. Kimberly Clissold, and we were the administrators for the credit recovery and cyber high on the Elsie Allen school site this summer.
So basically, we've separated our data into 2 slides. The credit recovery is your typical teacher in a classroom, students listening and doing work, recouping the credits that they didn't earn during the regular school year. We served 420 students. They passed 580 core courses. We had 13 teachers, and we couldn't have had summer school without these wonderful teachers. We also had 4 instructional aides in the classrooms, and I do want to mention that we had a new clerical staff, a new office manager, Maria Lopez, a new attendance clerk, Leslie Pryor, and they did a stellar job for us keeping track of everything. It was great. I want to say one more thing about credit recovery. We did have one enrichment class. Because we are doing credit recovery, we don't do much of it. But this year, we had a group. It started out about 16 students, and it finished with 10 incoming ninth graders to Elsie Allen. They're going to be Elsie Allen students, or they are right now. And they completed Algebra 1 over summer school. They did the entire year of Algebra 1 so that they could come into Elsie Allen and start with geometry, which will get them through the highest levels of math while they're still in high school. And it was really successful. The kids were delighted to be there. They were so thrilled to be on a high school campus, and they did a great job. We were enthralled when we walked in that room and watched what was going on.
One of the things that we tried to do this summer is to spend a little bit more time looking at some of our LCAP demographics and what our student population was looking like at summer school. We won't go into too much detail. We did submit a site report to the district, so they have some of the details on that to consider as we look at summer school for next year. But we certainly had a diverse group of students. We had students from all over Santa Rosa City Schools. All of the high schools were represented. And I just have to hand it to our students that stuck it out through summer school. You know, it's so hard to come to summer school, especially to try and recover credits. And we saw a lot of growth in our students. And our teachers were just so dedicated, some of them bringing in strategies that they had learned. We saw GLAD strategies in the classroom. We saw a lot of teachers trying to do some more project-based. So it was sort of a move as much as we could away from that idea of sitting and just, okay, here's a book, read through it, take a test. So our teachers really were stretching themselves, and we hope that as we move towards next year that we can support the teachers in doing more of that planning to think about how do you take a semester-length course and put it into 6 weeks and make it authentic and challenging and rigorous and meaningful to students. And some of our teachers did a tremendous amount of work in a very short period of time.
Okay, Cyber High, this is near and dear to my heart. We actually had 101 students enroll in Cyber High courses. It was also the quietest room on campus because these kids were really dedicated to getting their credits done. And students completed anywhere from 1 credit, they were 1 credit away from graduation, to 20 credits. I think the most we had done was 20 credits by 1 student. But the best thing about this is Cyber High was opened up to students who should have graduated in June and didn't. And this year, we did have 16 students graduate based on the credits they completed in Cyber High. I want you to know Cyber High classes, with the exception of the electives and their econ class, are all A to G approved. So these kids are really working in Cyber High. This is not a fluff thing. This is hard work. They have to read novels, they have to read the textbooks, and they do have to do work when they're in there.
And I have to say, you know, I wish that we wouldn't have had so many things going on the first couple weeks, because it would have been great to be able to stop and spend more time with some of these seniors. You know, certainly parents coming in and, did he really graduate? Is he done? And, you know, showing them, yes, he did it. And, you know, so those are wonderful experiences to see that they still graduated. You know, they may not have gone through it in the traditional sense. They might have missed their ceremony at school, but, you know, certainly to see them ready to move on, it was a nice opportunity. And also to see some of our underclassmen get in there and be able to regain credits at a much faster rate than they could have had they just had to take regular classes is significant. So we hope that that's something that continues as well.
Just so you know, we didn't let a single senior leave without going over their transcript like twice, and then both of us really congratulating them on their success. And then, do you have a picture for us? Nope. Okay. So the one thing that we did that was also different this year is Rafael Vasquez from SRJC did come to the campus and spoke to almost the entire student body. I think there was only 1 or 2 classes that didn't show up, Cyber High kids who were just too focused on getting their work done. But he brought his team from the college, and I don't know anyone who wasn't touched by what he said and felt invigorated by where we're sending our kids in the future, and the fact that they're putting their hands out to help us, help our students get to their future at the JC and beyond. So it was really good.
I just want to add on a little bit more. That was such a powerful presentation that we actually had students coming in the 3 days following to request information on how they could do concurrent enrollment at the JC while they were still in high school. And these are summer school kids. So they really were touched and moved by that and wanted to focus a little bit more on their academics and see how they could get ahead.
And so another program that was held at Cook Middle School was the Wells Fargo One City Arts program, where we had 50 students participating in a mariachi program on the campus. And it was July 20th through August 7th. The culmination at the end was a lunch at the Wells Fargo Center of the Arts. to kind of wrap things up and summarize everything.
Yes, we were fortunate to be able to partner with Wells Fargo, who supported both an art program and a mariachi program. The arts program was 50 students from the Cook neighborhood, and the mariachi was as well, each 3 weeks long. Wells Fargo supported the One City Arts and the mariachi program, and we are grateful to the staff at Cook Middle School, which went above and beyond making the facility available. We are going to be in conversation with Wells Fargo about how to grow the program, possibly add other areas such as dance and creative drama, and really build a program over the summer for enrichment at the Cook Middle School campus.
So as I mentioned in the beginning, it was a very productive summer, not just in the classroom though, but in the administrative offices. This is, as you can see and as you've heard, this is a very energetic, creative, dedicated, committed group of administrators right here who work to gather information all summer about the programs and how we can move forward and improve. So really this summer we've merely just scratched the surface on the different programs we can offer, and we're exploring different ways in how we can improve them. Many of our areas are listed here, where we're looking at modifying the recruitment timeline for summer program, increasing budgets, modifying schedules, considering centralized locations for programs, and increasing enrichment opportunities for all students at all levels. So we are still working on and committed to looking at these programs and examining how we can expand and improve, because that's what you do as a learner, is you figure out how to improve. You're always constantly trying to improve, and that's what we're doing for our students and our families. So I want to commend this team for all their hard work, and we're not done yet, so thank you.
Again, thank you to this team, as well as Chris White, who actually is the lead for our extended learning program. And I do use that term extended learning, and you'll see that in our LCAP and the investment that we've placed on extended learning, because I remember Mr. Kristoff brought up the fact that that's one of the ways in which we can truly help kids accelerate. The challenge that I've placed before Chris and Ryan is that another district has 61 free extended learning enrichment opportunities for students. Wouldn't that be awesome if we could do that as well? The other reason why this has come to you at this point is that we are also going to bring forward at the next meeting the actual plan for summer school for next year much sooner than we normally do. One of the issues we face this year is that because our timeline is around March, it's difficult because teachers have already made plans for the summer. And so then teachers are difficult in our district to be able to come and do summer school. So if we start this earlier, we really believe that teachers can then plan and we can get them to come and teach our summer school, because the demand is exceeding what we can provide at this point. The other piece of that is the professional development that we want to provide for teachers, working together with Sonoma State, providing CEUs and institutes. So not only are they teaching in these summer programs or enrichment programs, but also earning continuing education credits, getting professional development along the way. So again, I want to thank this team, and we would entertain any questions that you might have.
Well, we want to thank you too, and I think you the reason why there's so much interest in this now is because it is about enrichment, not just about credit recovery, not just about kids feeling like, okay, I've got to go there and, head down and feeling like they're not going to make it, as opposed to kids getting excited about going to school for the summer because they're doing fun stuff. And I love the addition of the interagency relationships that we've built, and there's such a wide variety. So I'd like to turn it over to the board now for questions or comments. Jen and Ron, and then Larry.
I just want to comment that was a great presentation. It sounds like you guys had a great summer, and there's so many different examples of great programs I just want to commend you on your work. I really love the idea that you had the mentors, the TLT mentors. I love the students, the peer mentoring and interaction with older kids. That is really cool. That 16 kids graduated that might not have otherwise. That is amazing, and alone is a great feat. I really appreciate. I think it was Lori that you gave a shout out to your office at classified staff and how important they were, because sometimes we forget about how important they are to our school sites. anyway, it sounds like everybody had a really great program this summer, and I appreciate the report. I'm excited for further growth in this area.
Ron and then Larry.
Yeah, thank you very much. I visited a few of the programs this summer. The Maker Camp was wonderful again. That's, I think, my 4th year in a row I visited it. And obviously, along with the Move Academy, the kids are very engaged. And I couldn't ask for more as a former teacher than to see kids come voluntarily to a program and spend their time and say, I'd rather be here than other places. So that's very, very cool. I also had a chance to see the mariachi performance, and that was wonderful too. That was, these are the kind of things I'd love to see expand and grow, and, more time during the summer, more time during the off times during the year, and even vacations, having things available. So I look forward to the 61 or 62 or whatever it is. I've got to be honest, though, I've said this before, though, the one program I'd like to see shrink is the credit recovery. And I'd still like to know why it is we have so many kids in those positions and what we can do to make sure that they're not having to take credit recovery and rather could take enrichment classes. So anyway, we can have that discussion in the future as well, but thank you all very much.
Larry?
Well, I also appreciate the varied experiences that the students had in the summer school program. And thank you for that report, and thank you for your work. My question is, of the students who attended, how many special ed, what was the percentage of special ed students?
Total enrollment was 273, so that was up 30 students from last year, which required hiring 2 teachers.
Right. Now, also, of those, not the special ed kids, but the other students, and you can include special ed because you probably have a figure on this. Of those that started, how many dropped?
In special ed?
Okay, yeah, if you have that.
I believe 10 students.
10
perhaps.
students? And in the regular classroom?
Okay, for ours, and we can get this report to you, but our summer school demographics show that 10% of our students were resource students. We don't have the actual data on how many dropped, but 10% were resource.
Okay. Now, what was the average class size for summer school? I'm not talking about the credit recovery either, the computer credit recovery.
You're talking about cyber high? Or not?
Not cyber high.
Not cyber high.
My average class size was 18, which is pushing it.
Okay.
Are you speaking of which class? High school?
Let's go to elementary and then high school.
Okay.
So, you want to do elementary? Okay. So for high school, we actually looked at the enrollment trends, starting with the first week. We took an enrollment report every Monday and looked at the class sizes. So starting off, our numbers were rather high, but by the time we hit, we started on 615, and by the time we hit 622, most of the class sizes were 45 or below. And they did continue to drop, with the average being probably around 38 students in a class.
And how about elementary?
For elementary?
At Monroe, we had an average of about 20 students per class.
Okay.
And that's true as well for Brook Hill. I think with the only exception would be the TK. The TK, we kept it really low at about 14 students just because they're the youngest groups. And attendance-wise, at least for my site, you can see the initial enrollment was 48. There was some confusion because there was only one form and we had 2 sites, and some parents didn't quite indicate either one site or they just put Monroe. And so when we sat down with all these stacks of applications to decipher which school and call, but we ended up with 66 students because we were really proactive about calling attendance, and we only had 1 student for medical reasons, but other than that, they all we had a pre and a post assessment for all of them.
So for elementary, it looks like with the GLAD program, 20 is a very manageable size, and that can work very well. And it's nice to see that they did work the GLAD program. And And then now high school, is that a larger class size than previous years?
We would love to bring those numbers down. And the reason why we're bringing this forward now is that we had difficulty in hiring enough teachers. We could have definitely hired more teachers to reduce that, but we were, it was just the timing of it, and which is why we want to bring it sooner.
Well, I think that's an excellent idea.
But we want to bring those numbers down, definitely.
And you also had an idea about adding professional growth?
Yes.
And I think that could be could also be an enticement for hiring more teachers.
Oh, definitely.
Some sort of, because you have so many innovative programs and teachers who want to come in for that innovation and also gain professional growth. Part of the reason is teachers like to keep their summers not free, and at the rate of pay, it's not nearly what you make in a regular
I think the other
hour.
support that was also there for the high school classes were the instructional assistants. So there were 4 instructional assistants, as was said. And we were also so fortunate to have the SAY counselors also there to help support. So again, we want to hire more teachers. Thus, we are doing this earlier. And so that our plan is to bring those numbers down.
Glad to see you're addressing it. Thanks very much for the report and the work you did.
Director Carl.
Great, thanks for the report. At the Move Academy, were there videos of the TED Talks? Yeah.
The teacher has some of the videos. Some were not filmed. She has a few.
Is there a way to get access to that?
I can find out and follow up with you.
Super, thanks.
Frank? Well, thank you very much. It's so great to get such a positive report and see the enthusiasm that you bring to the table here, and all the accolades you have for staff and teachers. It's wonderful. I really appreciate the time you've taken and all the work you did this summer. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to move on to F3, which is the student-athlete concussion baseline testing update. Ms. Kitamura.
President Jay, we're pleased to bring before you an update on our Santa Rosa City Schools concussion management. I'm going to actually turn it over to Elizabeth Evans and Russ, the famous Russ, to provide this presentation, and then we'll introduce our special guest here as well.
Good evening, President Jay, Superintendent Shields, and members of the board. Before we get started, I want to first introduce Russ Petrick. You all know him, but I also want to just say how much we appreciate the work he's done, and really, without him, this program wouldn't be as advanced as it is. He's done an amazing job. Thank you, Russ. He's really, yeah.
Thank you.
I also want to introduce our 2 new athletic trainers. That brings our number of athletic trainers up to 5. Very exciting. So on the far right, we have Chelsea Williamson, and she is currently at Pioneer High School. And we have Brianna McLean, and she is at Elsie Allen High School. So we are thrilled to have them, and welcome, ladies, for joining us. So I'm going to share some information with you to bring you up to date. Are you going to do that? You can do it. Okay. To bring you up to date on our program. In 2014-15, oh, okay. Whoops. Okay. Sorry. There we go. Okay, thank you. In 2014 and 15, we had 1,870 student athletes who were tested, concussion baseline tested in impact sports. 106 of those students were given a diagnosis of concussion, and 96 of those students received post-injury tests. One of the highlights of the 14-15 school year in the concussion management program was the education provided to all the high school faculties at staff meetings by Professor Nancy Chin of the Santa Rosa Junior College and ATC Matthew Suramoto. They went to each of the high school faculties and did a PowerPoint presentation and gave information to the faculty on how best to support students when they have a concussion or suspected concussion. This year, in 15-16, we began district-wide concussion testing. We started that district-wide concussion testing at Pioneer High School this summer, and in July, on July 20th and 21st, we concussion baseline tested 273 Santa Rosa City Schools athletes who were participating in football. We're going to start participating in football. The football season started July 22nd, so we had to move up our testing schedule. Subsequently, our athletic trainers have provided makeup tests for their own fall athletes and cheerleaders, and we have tested a total of 1,007 athletes since July. We have a district-wide testing schedule that we're continuing, and we have 2 dates for winter athletes and then 2 dates for our spring athletes. So those are district-wide days. They're going to continue at Pioneer, but the athletic trainers will continue to do their work with athletes. They'll do makeup tests and post-injury tests at their sites. So these are the sports where athletes are concussion baseline tested. It's not for all of our sports, but there are impact sports: football, soccer, volleyball, diving, basketball, wrestling, softball, baseball, and in track it's pole vaulting and high jump and cheerleading as well. In these 4 sports you see here, these are the ones where students were diagnosed with a concussion this past year. And on the next slide, these are the sports that are not impact sports. They're non-impact sports, and we do not concussion test for these sports at this time. On this slide, you'll see the timeline for our program for this year, and if you look at it and have any questions about it, we'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. We are really pleased to share this last slide with you. It shows all of our athletic trainers, and it includes the university or college that they went to where they received their most recent degree. As you can see, 3 of the trainers already have their master's degrees. So we are extremely excited about the qualifications, the quality of our athletic trainers. I also want to give a note of thanks to the North Coast Concussion Management Group, because they have been huge supporters of us, and we value what they do for all of our student athletes, and particularly Dr. Ty Affleck has been just a great support to us. We're able to call the North Coast Concussion Management Program when we have questions or concerns. They've just been really wonderful for our students. So do you have any questions?
Thank you. A few questions. 106 students were given a diagnosis of a concussion. By whom?
Well, do you want to answer that?
Yeah. All the trainer's responsibility is the fact that they suspected a concussion, and we have a suspected concussion protocol that our district goes by.
Right.
And the Excuse me, the diagnosis is done by a physician.
Okay, so we have, our ATCs look at the issue, check the testing, suspect that there's an issue. Those 106 were all diagnosed by a family physician or some other physician.
Yes.
Got it, all right. And then the 96 that received post-injury tests, is that our post-tests after the baseline to compare?
Yes.
Okay, all right, very good. Last fall, we had 1,073 students that were tested. This year, it's 1,007. Pretty comparable numbers. Are there still some testing that we're going to still see a few more kids? We have an estimate? In October 24th, there's a test.
Right.
We have an estimate of where we're likely to get to?
Probably pretty close to, see, we have soccer in the winter now.
Right.
So that increases the number in the winter sports.
Right.
And I would say we probably have about 400 to 500 students there in those sports.
So that'll take the numbers out of the spring sports.
Yes.
That were almost 900 last year. So
In
the
the
predominance of that was soccer then.
Yes, that will increase. It took the number out of the fall, but they are in the winter, so we'll make that up there.
Okay.
And the thing is the fact that if a student is not tested, they are not allowed to start the sport.
Right.
And so that's why we had makeups. This year, summertime was a mess because we found out at the end of April that CIF and the North Coast section approved football to start on June the 1st with no contact conditioning. And we decided that the kids needed a rest. They had spring training in football, so they got a rest. And the official practices without contact started on July 22nd. And the official practice where they could start hitting started on April 10th, or August 10th. And then the official for the rest of the sport started on August 17th. So there was a lot of testing that had to be done that wasn't all at the same time. And in the winter now, what we'll do is, thank you to Pioneer High School, they are hosting all schools on the same days and testing. And so we won't have as many kids that we're going to have to do post-testing on. All of our post-testing is done by our ATCs.
Were all of the baseline tests done by supervised by the ATCs this year?
Yes.
So North Coast Concussive Management didn't have to get into it this year?
They didn't, no, they haven't been into it since the first time that we did it, which was 2 years ago.
How long does the test take?
It tests about 25 minutes for the instructional part and close to an hour for the actual testing.
Okay.
Because there's the actual education component that every kid has to take, and then they go into the testing with the computers. And we had Chromes this last one, so it worked out good. We could handle as many as 90 kids. And then after that, they're released. They get a form. That form has to be signed. That's their ticket to get into practice. If they don't have that form, they can't get into the practice when the season starts.
And have we found that this is now considered sort of standard operating procedures, not getting any pushback, and it's a much smoother process now?
Much smoother, except there are a few parents that think they can diagnose concussions better than the doctors can. And they're coercing some of the doctors, hey, I got to say it, they're coercing some of the doctors into, well, he can go back again. Thank goodness to these people. Once you're diagnosed, it's 7 days, whether the doctor signs them back in or not. So if the doctor doesn't diagnose them, and then later, because of the symptoms, diagnoses them, then they have 7 days after they're diagnosed. So we're getting a pretty good, as far as kids being injured and going to the doctors and being diagnosed, it's much better. The other thing is the fact that we had, I'm on the board for the NCCM, which is North Coast Concussion Management. We had a workshop for the physicians at Kaiser. And I'm still getting comments about you, Bill, and the fact that the job that you did, and they really, really appreciated you being there and giving your little presentation that you gave with that.
Well, we're doing that again, as you probably know, at
Right.
the end of September.
In September.
It's one of the reasons I wanted this information as soon as you guys got pulled together, because I think it's really
And-
helpful to push the message.
Right. And the other thing is the fact that a lot of the doctors are not really familiar with what the program is. They can diagnose the concussion. The symptoms are there, and they've learned all about that, but a lot of them don't understand that once they do diagnose, it's a 7-day wait. And then they go through another program, which is SCAT-3 testing, and it is a recovery program where they start riding a stationary bike, and if they can make that one, they go to the next one, and if they can't make that one, they go back to the beginning again. And each test has to be over a 24-hour period. So this is, right now, as far as the NCCM is concerned, we're trying to educate doctors too. Sounds funny, you know, here I am, a coach and AD, and but it's a great program the way it's developed. One other thing is, all of a sudden, we have become a focal point for all the other schools that want to start a program. And, you know, can you send us this? What do you pay your ATCs? We can't seem to be getting an ATC. Well, we found out that if you don't pay them enough, you're not going to get the ATCs. And thanks to the Board of Education, we had some extra finances, and these young ladies with master's degrees, who one of them is publishing their master's degree, Chelsea is, we had, 5 people apply for 2 jobs. And before, we had 3 people apply for 5 jobs. So thanks to the board, it helped us out a tremendous amount.
A couple other questions. I noticed on the school's impact sports include the middle school high jump wasn't included. It was last year. Is there some reason was that just left off inadvertently?
No, we have been trying to decide if we want to finish or actually cover all the sports at high school before going into the middle schools, or if we want to just provide some education. We talked about that last year, and we're trying to figure out the best way for us to move forward. And Russ and I have been having some pretty extensive conversations about how to manage the education piece for the middle schools.
Right.
And those athletes.
Yeah, and I'd like to understand, you know, I'd like to see that come back to the board in the not-too-distant future, because obviously we've got kids in middle school that are playing impact sports, and you know, as we expand the program, that's a very logical place to go.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. See, we're caught in a situation where either we expand to all sports at the high school, which is going to greatly increase the number of students that are going to be tested, so that's probably going to take a month of weekends to get that done, or we can go to the middle school level and get the contact sports in the middle school and test them, or we can go to the middle school and we can educate the kids that are going out without the testing. And right now we're trying to decide. I mean, at the middle school level, there are 2 schools that get almost 200 kids out for track, and at the high school level, there are, you know, 3 schools that probably get around, you know, 175 to 200 kids that are out for track. So we thought from the beginning it'd be best to get the contact that takes place, like the pole vaulters, the high jumpers, and then all of a sudden the coaches are saying, well, what about the hurdlers? They're always falling down, and so on and so forth. So it's just something that we have to work out, and it's just going to be. It's going to be in the near future, because we talked to Monica at the junior college. We talked to Ty, and he thought that it would be better to get all the high school kids first and then test all of them, all sports. And then once we get educated in doing that, then we can move to the middle schools and go there. So really, when we come in with a proposal, we're going to be asking your you know, what do you think? And you'll get a pre-report on it as to maybe what you would prefer doing, the board would prefer doing.
Well, we can certainly look at it. I think it'd be hard for any of us to substitute our opinion for a physician's opinion who works in that area with some great degree. I guess my initial gut level would be, you know, where is the biggest risk, and where are the ones that we're not getting that we can get. But, you know, and that's, again, I don't find that substituting our opinion for Ty's or others or the athletic trainers that are looking at this, you know, I'd be looking for a recommendation, you know, from that direction.
Yeah.
Lastly, I'm really pleased that we have 5 athletic trainers. That's fabulous. I think it's incredibly important. I'm glad that Elsie and Piner have capable, and obviously it sounds like more than just capable, very good athletic trainers, and I think that helps this program a tremendous amount. The other thing, you know, I want to push the envelope a little bit. And that is that I'm intrigued by what San Rafael High School is doing with the Triax impact sensors. I don't know, we're seeing this in professional lacrosse, and we're starting to see this open up a little bit. It's not cheap, you know, it's $190 a unit. But I'm curious whether, you know, whether that's something we ought to be looking at in the not too distant future. Or whether this technology is giving us information that we really don't know is going to be helpful. It'd just be fun to try to understand whether that's something we ought to pay attention to.
So I had deja vu.
And you're giving us some info on that. But,
Deja vu that you might ask about it. And so Elizabeth was so kind to do a little bit of research. And so we provided that for the board because it's a little mixed. The opinion is a little mixed on when we're talking about is the head piece inside of the helmet to measure. And so we've provided that to the board for your awareness. In San Rafael's case in particular, that was foundation raised,
right.
The funds. And
right,
so,
it was privately raised.
Yeah, privately raised. And then I don't know if you saw the article on the NFL that they were using them, and I think they're not going to use them anymore. So I think it's something we should explore.
It's just worth exploring and understanding. To be honest, whether the NFL makes a decision one way or another, right. I wouldn't trust it. Only in the sense that this issue has such a huge potential impact on that whole sport.
Well, that's it. They're probably lobbying for them not to use them at all. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the settlement in that situation was not initially accepted by the judge, and there's a motivation there that's much different than our motivation in protecting our students. So I appreciate it's coming forward, and I'm not recommending that we go do it, but I'm recommending that we spend some time understanding what's going on, be aware of it, and if it's something that down the line we think would be beneficial to the students, then we ought to take a look at it. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Larry and then Ron.
Thank you for all your work. It's really a great program. Do all the kids, I'm thinking of Medi-Cal kids, students who want to get back in, have to be looked at by a doctor? Are they getting timely appointments? They get appointments?
Yeah, we haven't had anybody that objected to it as of today.
Right.
We have had some people. Can you answer that?
Actually, we had one student I heard last year, or yes, it was last spring, I heard from a health clinic that was concerned that one of their clients had received a concussion and had been diagnosed at their clinic, but then they needed to get the follow-up information, and they were not sure what to do, and it was kind of a problem, and they ended up getting some support through North Coast Concussion Management. But that is something that our health clinics need to be aware of. The concern by the health clinic was that their doctors didn't have enough experience to really work with the student to adequately do the diagnosis, and so that's why the education piece for the doctors is so important.
Looks like you're well ahead of the situation, so thank you very much, and thank you for all your work.
Ron and then Frank.
Yeah, I don't want to repeat too much, but thank you guys again for, the update and the progress that you've made. The 106, the number is, to me, out of, 1,800 or so. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it does sound like a lot, I guess is what I'm saying. And my question is about the quality control as well. Since this has become a very, public issue, and it started with football, but now when I read the paper, I noticed basketball this year and baseball. Many athletes, it could be season ending, it can be career ending, and people are not out just 7 days. I mean, people are out for a long time, and names that you saw on a roster at one time are no longer there. But again, if it's a matter of educating the doctors, I mean, how do we do this? I mean, if somebody's got a concussion that's really life-threatening and the impetus is to get them back in the game, I mean, how do we control that part of the process?
Really, I don't think that is controllable. But what can happen is the doctors can be educated to what the severity of something like that is. And like last year, we had a kid in football, and he's still not fully recovered. He's still getting special treatment in classes, and he goes back to the doctor occasionally. He develops symptoms, and so he goes back to the doctor, and having had that experience with a grandson who had a severe concussion, and it took him over 2 years just to be able to, it completely changed his personality. So, and these two could probably tell you what can happen. I mean, a kid can get hit and go 2 or 3 days before the symptoms start. So he could go to the doctor, and the doctor said, well, I'm glad that the ATC sent you. You don't have the symptoms for a concussion, so I'll sign this and you go back because you don't have a concussion. And then all of a sudden, 4 days later, the kid can't function in class, he can't remember plays in football or basketball, and so it's going right through. I think that the thing is the education for everybody, not just the doctors. And these two right here and the other 3 students that we have, or ATCs that we have, which I call my kids, they are more up on this than I am or anybody else in the district is. And so we pretty much ride by what they say. And it's not just the concussions that they're dealing with everything. Broken fingers, broken arms, dislocated shoulders, and they're handling all that. So that's why I think these 5 people deserve an awful lot of credit for the job that they're doing, especially a liaison between the schools and the doctors. I mean, they keep the doctors updated on what the kids are doing, and the doctor emails them for information on how the student's doing. So it's a program where everybody gets educated, they're going to find out. And you're right, Ron. It doesn't seem like a big number, but to the kid and the parents that has the concussion, it's a big number.
Frank and then Jen.
Excellent presentation. It's great to see such a significant and important program grow in our district and adjust itself to accommodate our students. Most of my questions were answered in the discussion and dialogue that took place, such as can a student play without a baseline? That seems to be pretty clear what the position of the district is. Who makes the decision to the student to return to play? Seems that's pretty clear. What troubled me, though, was hearing about the rare situation where you have parents getting involved and trying to nudge a physician to let their child play. And I don't know what you do about that because that's sort of outside of what we can control. But maybe there are ways we control this, I don't know. And then also the 7-day rule was interesting. So my question isn't so much about the program and all the good work that's being done there to protect kids, but my question is more along the lines about our administrative regulations. Is all that we are currently doing, creating this past practice, is that codified in our administrative regulations, or is that something that should come back?
It's something we want to bring back. We went from 0 to 60 pretty fast.
Yes.
And so I think you bring up an excellent point in terms of being sure that our policies match what the practices are occurring. So we will definitely bring that forward. And then, Mr. Kristoff, I think you also bring up an excellent point in terms of quality control. And really it begins, like Russ said, in educating everybody who is in contact with that child. Because it's always about wraparound services. If I miss it, someone else is going to. And we can't just depend completely on the 5 ATCs. The ADs are a part of this, the coaches are a part of this, the teachers, the administrative staff. And I think that's where we will continue to educate. So we've done this whole round of education, and I talked to Elizabeth and Russ about, but what about the new teachers? How are we going to get them trained? So we talked about a plan for that as well, because the new staff that has to come on, they have to be aware of that child in their classroom, and if anything comes up. So I think quality control in terms of like what I think of, absolute, be difficult, but wrap around with everybody watching, I think is really how we're going to be able to manage it.
I would just continue to suggest that since there's influence between parents and other folks, that the board policies and administrative regulations are written in such a way to take the push away. We just point at the policy, this is what we do, this is our past practice, this is our good practice, and try to get judgment out of that.
Excellent suggestion, Mr. Pugh. We will take that.
And if I might add something else to that, in our policy now we have a protocol for a suspected concussion. And if a student has a concussion, we also have a protocol for that student getting academic help. And it goes from probably, and we've talked to the ADs about the fact if a kid has a concussion, then the teachers need to know about it. But for the teachers to know about it, it has to get to the counselor. So the counselor knows about it, and then the counselor can talk with the teachers for academic accommodation. So we have some things in order that we know what's going on, and I think you're right. We need to put those in some sort of a policy. Okay.
Jen, thanks for the report, and congratulations on the tremendous job you're doing protecting our athletes, our students, and also being leaders in the community, really, with the education, being part of the education for the physicians, and I think that's great. Welcome to the new athletic trainers. And I hope you like it here very much. But I have a question about that, and that is, what kind of support are we providing or are we arranging for, facilitating for our athletic trainers? Because we're not a hospital, we don't have, and we're not a professional sports team with layers of physicians. And so what kind of professional support do they have access to?
Right now, their support is through TIE. Because TIE is, theoretically, we should have a doctor assigned to every school. And in fact, that is a law, is the fact that each school has a doctor. That's one other thing that we're looking for as far as, on Kaiser we have 2 people that are helping us out. And then we have TIE that is helping us out in reading the baseline test reports. And I think that the fact that we don't have a physician for each, we do for football because it's mandatory. You need to have a physician or an EMT at every one of the football games. So usually that physician does not help out with everything else. But right now, in talking with the NCCM, is the fact that we're trying to get a physician for every school. And then right now, their physician is the doctor that diagnosed the concussion. So what kind of support are you getting? No, not very much.
Yeah.
And they're both new, and they're starting their program, and they're doing a wonderful job of doing it. We're trying to get a couple of the training rooms straightened out so they can really get to work. But
That seems like an important aspect to this, to create, to form some good partnerships with local medical community so that they're supported, because I know you do a lot more than concussion testing, and so to make sure that you have the resources you need so, your job can be sustainable. And
I think Santa Rosa JC is a very good support.
Yeah.
Good.
Monica is not a physician, but she should be.
She's,
And she is a great support for us and for our ATCs. You were a former student of hers, yeah. And she's always there. I mean, I'm on the phone or emailing her all the time. And she could, like I say, be in the place of a physician, but she doesn't have that particular credential to be able to do that. So if we can get 5 doctors, one for each one of the schools, that would be great.
we've got a few sports med specialists here in town who graduated from our schools. Maybe we can reach out to them, and she'd like that, see if they might be interested in volunteering some time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you for
and the
your
great program
support.
you developed. Chelsea and Brianna, we really appreciate your taking the time to come down here tonight, and we're really glad you came to work for us. Good luck. Thank you. Now we will move on to item F4, which is a discussion item, planning for truancy intervention in Santa Rosa City Schools. Ms. Kitamura.
Yes, it's me. President Jay, we present to you tonight information about truancy, and in particular truancy in Santa Rosa City Schools. Let me start this. So I know you've heard this, but we can't ever say this enough about building strong children rather than repair broken men. I have to tell you, this little girl is one of the students from the Wells Fargo and Mariachi. So this was actually taken, I think they took a limo, and I absolutely adore this picture of her, so I wanted to share that. The presentation begins with some definitions. I know that you've heard this many times before, but we wanted to provide it for you, the definition of chronic, absentee truant, habitual truant, and chronic truant. And so you'll see those definitions there. I will not proceed to read them tonight, but you will see them there. The next set of slides is really the practice that occurs somewhat here in the district right now. And I say somewhat in that the truancy letters that we send home at the 3rd, the 6th, and the 10th, there is a process that we have in place that at the first letter, there is to be contact with parent and students concerning those first 3 unexcused absences. It can tend to be a little bit different for sites at what they do and how they approach this. And so that's why I indicate here about the inconsistency about what happens. As you know, when the 6th unexcused absence occurs, that is when the potential for a second truancy letter is sent. And at that time, that is when a student attendance review team meeting can be initiated. That student, that SART is another term for it, occurs with the administrator, hopefully with counselors, other members of the team, our restorative response specialists. And I'll show you in the data how this starts to become a little bit more difficult as it goes on. Let's see. Oops, sorry. Once the student has earned their 9th unexcused absence, there is again the potential, if there has been a SART, to refer the student to a SARB. And there you see some different actions that occur when a student is sent to SARB. And again, we're going to show you some data a little bit later about how this, again, is difficult because the number of students that actually get through a SART and a SARB and then what really happens to them is something I think is really the heart of the discussion that we're going to have tonight. And when we're talking about absences and truancy, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about all the different resources that we currently have, both site-based, school-based, as well as community partners. Those are all listed here, and I know there's others, but this is just some of the ones that we wanted to bring forward and show you that there is a great deal of support. The interesting thing is that all of these supports represented by these arrows are not necessarily coherent. They're not necessarily, everybody aligned and going in the same direction. We have the same goal. We want the same thing for children, but sometimes I think because there's so much and so many different things, we're not like this. We're not headed with the arrows all in the same direction. So that brings us to the data, and I just jumped one. And I've asked our new director of data to come down here so that he can help talk about some of the data. And I've also brought our new director of student and family engagement down here because this is an area near and dear to her. And Jason was probably just truant, and so that's why he's here. So, let's take a look at our truancy rates. And what we did is we provided a 3-year look at it. And you can see these are percentages. And again, truancy rates are considered 3 or more unexcused absences. And so, again, you can see in 2013-14, 42.5% for elementary, 36% for secondary, and then 38.1%. The county is at 22.39%, and the state is at 31.14%. So we are, by comparison, high, but high. If we take a look at it by ethnicity, so you can take a look at total enrollment, and then the percent of chronic truancy, which chronic truancy is 10%. So they have missed 10%, or if it's 180 days in the school year, 18 days of school, okay? And so by ethnicity, these are the percentages of students who are chronically truant. And you can see the range there in the district total. We also, Rand was smarty pants and did this also by English learner and not English learner, as well as low income and not low income. And you can see the total enrollment there as well, and then the percentage. So 16% chronic truant, non-English learner, English learner 26.1%. So having missed 18 or more days. For not low income, 10.2%. For low income, 24.6%. I will say that actually all 4 numbers are troublesome, if you take a look at it, all 4 numbers. Then we wanted to look at it by GPA. And so when we looked at it by GPA, and I apologize, I believe that this is the slide that my trifocals didn't focus in on the tri, and that the 2.59 is actually 2.67, 2.65?
This one was 5.5.
Okay, all right. So I apologize for that error in your packet. And so Rand, why don't you talk about this slide a little bit?
Well, thanks for the warning, Diane.
You're welcome.
One of the things that I found interesting looking at this was how seniors seem to do better than freshmen do, even though their truancy is, in terms of overall truancy, it's pretty similar. And I think seniors have figured out the system, because truancy in the secondary really is related by period, so you can carefully plan when you're absent without a note. Hence, you don't lose credit, or you're still able to access the curriculum, complete the assignments, that kind of thing. So I think seniors, one of the things we're teaching kids is how to use the system to their advantage. I don't know whether that's good or bad. Another thing that struck me as interesting in combination with some of the other slides is what is the story behind the truancy? And, having sat in the administrative chairs that I have, it's really very complicated. And I don't think we've, in the past, had the tools to dig into that backstory. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure Diane's going to head that direction here in a moment.
And so I think, too, when Rand talked about trends, I also see that, I also would point out that the trend as you move from 10 to more than 10 to more than 20, the mere absences alone affect GPA. So the GPA automatically goes down, okay? I know it's kind of like simple, but really I just did want to point that out. And then we did ran this data by grade and then by chronic truancy. So again, that's over more than 18 days. And again, you see, when you miss school, your GPA goes down, your grades go down, okay? Then he took a look at the number of Fs, and this is the one that I always have to get a little help on, so I'm going to let you explain this one.
It's still complicated in talking about. Looking at the first column, a non-chronic truant student has a point at an average of 0.6 F. So the typical student doesn't have a failing grade at 7th grade. The chronic student has 4 or more Fs. Overall students, so when you look at all students, the typical student in 7th grade has only 0.7 F. So essentially fewer than 1 F. And then it's the same kind of discussion for 8th through 12th grade. Again, that same trend occurs. As they get older, they seem to have figured out how to avoid the grade impact of their absence.
So again, the Fs are naturally earned by the student being chronically truant. Okay. This is a summary of the number of truancy letters sent in 2014 and 15. And I don't know if you recall that we actually brought the letters into the district office in terms of generating them. In the past, it was done by site, but what we did to alleviate some of the workload was to bring that into the district, and those letters are sent out of the district office once those absences are incurred by the sites. And so you can see the actual total number of truancy letters, first truancy letters of almost 7,000, so students missed more than 3 unexcused absences. That once that first letter was sent, that the number of second letters went down to 1,344. So we would say that that first letter, did help. It helped in curbing some of the truancy. Once that second letter is sent, that is again when the administrative team at the sites have the school attendance review team meeting with the parent and the students. And so these are the total number of SARTs that occurred. When you look at that 1,344, that's what I was talking about earlier, that for an administrative team to be able to do, and counselors and everybody involved, to be able to do 1,344 SARTs would be very, very difficult for them to accomplish that. And then remember, you do not refer to SARB unless you've had a SART where there is an action plan for, behavioral changes to occur. And so 282 SARTs did occur, with 12 students actually being referred to SARB. So you can see the vast number at 7,000 down to 12 of SARB. The question I would have is, what interventions are we putting in place coherently to be able to resolve this issue? Because by looking at the numbers, there are many more students that may not have changed behavior, had some sort of intervention, if SARB is our answer and we actually only had 12 referred to SARB. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And then we put this in just to demonstrate a loss when 18 or more days are made. We put them in because the cost is different for each of the grade spans, and that this would be the total revenue. So, and this is for last school year. Here's some statistics I did add for you, and that is, and I didn't know if you knew this, but the 3rd grade truancy rate is the way that the prison system determines how many beds that they may need in the future. Only 17% of chronically absent kindergartners and first graders in California read proficiently by 3rd grade. Students who do not read proficiently by 3rd grade are 4 times more likely to drop out of school. 90% of students with severe attendance problems are low income. In 2013-14, Sonoma County had a 15% elementary student truancy rate and a loss of over $9 million. Some pretty startling statistics. Here's the number that I also wanted to show you, that of the almost 2 million students, truant students in California, there were really only 23 that ended up in SARB. And so if we're looking at SARB as the intervention, as the way in which we're going to solve truancy, when there's only 213 that are actually SARB out of 2 million truant, I'm not sure that we're looking at the right kinds of solutions for students. I included this because this is in the research that we did in order to prepare this report. Truancy is a multifaceted, 4- or 5-dimensional social problem. It is not something as simple as student misses. We need to, we mark them absent, then we send the truancy letter, and then we do a SART, and then we SARB. We can see and we know by our own percentages that those interventions are not working, that because it's school factors, because it's economic, because it is student, and because it's family, that this is a problem that we have to address community-wide. Socorro's going to talk a little bit more about this at the end. I wanted to, let me go back. So the question I pose to you as a school board is, how does punishing for truancy serve the student, the school, and ultimately the community? And when I say punishing, I mean that this whole process of the first letter, second letter, SART and SARB, and also something that's been brought up before the board and that I do want to discuss, and I do want to discuss, and that is this 20-day rule, and that we, at 20 days of unexcused absences, students lose all credits in the class, okay? So some would say that I may be confusing issues in terms of punishing or not punishing for truancy, but if a student is already truant, they're truant, they are missing school, the trends of our data show that their grades are suffering. Teachers have the ultimate right to give grades. I would say that it appears that the credits will naturally come if a student fails by missing school. Do we need to also have a policy that eliminates credits if you miss 20 days or 18 days, no, 20 days by policy? When the factors that I just talked about are so complex and that the systems we have are not working, isn't it incumbent upon us to create a coherent system that truly intervenes with students and families so that we can alleviate the problem, not add to it by students continuing to be credit deficient? I would say that some of the students, why we have so many students with missing credits, is a part of them either failing the class, naturally, by grades given to teachers, or the 20-day unexcused absence issues. I know I've heard many of you talk about adverse childhood experiences and toxic stress that children are subjected to through their lives, and that how that affects them and what happens to them is something I think that we have to address as a school community for our children. I've included here the education code about teachers and being able to grade. Teachers are able to grade. If a student is missing their class and it's graded on the work that they're doing, so be it. It is what it is. When a student misses one or 21 days, that teacher gets to grade the work that's produced by that child. And the grade should reflect the learning, which would definitely be affected by the student missing class, which has been shown in our data. So I ask you as a board and as a school community, do we want to understand why a student is truant and heal that, or do we want to punish? And so that is actually the question that I pose to you. Included in the board report are some ideas and things we're looking at in terms of how we could bring a continuum of support for truancy. So I laid out the first letter, the second letter, the SART, and the SARB, but with some other interventions that are whole wraparound family community based rather than some of the practices that we're doing now. So I did lay that out for you. And then ideas that I'd like you to ponder as you also answer the question about truancy and what we do as a community. And these are some of the ideas. I've heard a lot about truancy officers. It's been, I think I get asked about it almost every single time. And I think that we need to have 21st century types of truancy officers. And I would propose something like an attendance and behavior specialist that does do those home visits, is out and about, but maybe do, some other things that incorporate more community-based partnerships and practices. Saturday Academy, Parent Patrol, I've had that at a school where parents were actually helping out. School resource officers at the elementary. Wouldn't that be something that could be very helpful? Counselors at all elementary schools, incentives for staff who are bilingual, social workers, community partnerships that involve training, mentorships, internships, jobs for parents, and then expanding the full-service community school model to more schools. This is a timeline for us to gather information. This is something that cannot be done alone by the school district. This is something that has to involve all of our community, all the stakeholders within the school in order to gather the information and the data and to come up with a plan that we will all together, community-wide, wrap around our students who are truant. And I put some acronyms in there and some education code. And I'd be more than, and some resources, and we'd be more than happy to address any questions you might have.
Before I bring it back to the board for questions and comments, I have a speaker card. Mr. Cartapasi.
Good evening. John Cortopassi, Santa Rosa High. As you know, this has been an issue that's been a hot topic for me for the last 2 years. I'm pleased that the board and the district office is starting discussions on it. I will say I don't agree with everything Ms. Kitamura has said, though. I don't think that having an attendance policy is punishment, and I think you need to look into the ed code and the state law as far as the T1 letters, T2. That's out of your hands. That's part of ed code. Those are required. So I think you need to look into that. I fully support the notion that it is a community effort, that more education needs to be done. That's imperative. But I will tell you, since I've been coming to this board to address this issue for the last 2 years, almost nothing has been done. I keep advocating that you look at and address your 20-cut policy. I don't know if you understand. There's a perception by many of these students that nothing happens until they reach that magic number of 20. And that's the problem. The number was increased, and I tried to do the research. I couldn't find where the board policy changed. I'm sure someone at the district office can find it. The policy, I think the number was 10, and it got pushed up to 20 because we no longer had the budget to finance the summer school programs and all these wonderful things you heard in F2. Well, we have those programs in place. We increased the number from 10 to 20 because we didn't have those programs in place. We have those programs in place. It might be time to readjust that number. A couple of numbers that I did want to point out to you. Since I've been addressing you on this topic, the truancy rate numbers have gone from 34 to 36 to 50.8% at the secondary level. A 14% increase just last year alone. That's something that is unheard of. According to the report, it cost the district $280,000 just last year. We've talked before, previous reports. It's cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars because of our chronically truant students, and nothing's been done. I keep asking the board to look at this issue. I keep asking the board to address the issue. We just heard in F3, members of this board thought the concussion survey was an important issue 2 years ago. And it happened, and I'm glad it happened. It's an important thing. But I've been coming to the board for 2 years to ask you to address and look at this issue, and nothing has been done. All I can hope is that one or multiple members of this board take this truancy issue as being important, and maybe we can get something done to address this issue. Thank you.
Larry and then Ron.
Diane, I think you really outlined a really good program with the idea of it is a community program. And I think it needs to be handled, of course, differently at the elementary. It's really reaching out to the families because they don't have the wherewithal until they get to maybe the fourth, fifth grade. of getting to school. It's up to the families, and reaching out for that family support is essential. I think when you get to secondary, we have a different issue. I want a clarification. A tardy is how many minutes? How do we count tardy?
30.
30. Well, I think that's an issue that needs to be corrected. I think it needs to be 10 minutes. And after 10 minutes, I think it needs to be a cut. The reason I say that because of my experience as a high school teacher, and I think I really agree with Rand, kids game the system. So if they know they can be tardy 29 minutes and not get a cut, that's when they come in. And so, yes, in the same way with the absences. They know at Montgomery High School, it used to be 10, it was strictly adhered to. I mean, if there was really a chronic illness, then we were looking at it. But it was a lot of kids, especially in the upper years, that kids that aren't connected with school, absolutely true. It's those kids. But they're trying to get through high school. And when they come in that late, or when they finish, when they game the system down to 19, it harms the classroom. And here's why. Yes, you bring up an excellent point. The teacher controls the grade. However, it puts tremendous pressure on the teacher. And I'm going to give you an example. Let's say you're a social studies teacher, an English teacher. You're having a discussion on a reading assignment. Okay, so in comes, you've got a class of 30. You've got 8 or 9 kids coming in at 29 minutes. To avoid that, you've missed that discussion. Then you've got other kids who are gaming the system for the number of days. You don't have kids that are prepared for the discussion, and they know they don't have to be. Yes, the grade reflects what the student has learned, but that's in theory. It's very difficult to have a test designed that fully recognizes the complexity of what goes on in a classroom on a daily basis. Plus, the student who is not there, by not being there, the class has a less enriching discussion. So I think for those factors, I think we need to I hold issue with the idea of 20. And I think we have another problem. We're trying to teach kids, these are really the kids that aren't interested in school, that are using this escapism, so to speak, these cutting. And we're trying to teach them to get ready for the world of work or the world of college. Usually those kids aren't going directly to a 4-year university, but we're teaching them to go to the junior college. They've got to show up when they get there. And it's really important to lay that out at a very early time and saying this is a consequence. Now, it was brought up in the SRTA document of going back to, losing 1 credit. I disagree with that, because what happens is kids will go, well, I can make up the 1 credit. And it just leads to what Ron was saying of they go to the computer and they make up that 1 credit. Kids need to be in class in order to learn. We know that. We know the research. And we also know, that's an interesting statistic that was brought up, that 14% increase at a $280,000 price tag. Well, I think you'd actually reduce the number of tardies, the number of cuts, and I think, or the number of cups, yes, the number of absences. And I think those students that go to summer school, because of that, they will get the enrichment of the summer school program. And the money that we save by reducing that will then pay for the money that goes to summer school. So I think there's a lot of win-wins. I think you've got a really good handle on the community problem. And I think we definitely need to do that. And we need to start at a very early age. So I applaud you on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Jen?
Diane, thank you and your staff very much. And Rand, this is A lot of good information, and I think the word complexity really is very important to me too. We're not going to solve anything tonight, and I'm hoping this is a discussion that's broader, because the ramifications are not just financial.
No.
And our community has changed. What's really changed is the attitude towards school. I'll tell you, Rand, maybe one of the reasons the numbers go up for seniors is because of the dropout rate. As a high school teacher, I would see halfway through 9th grade, a certain amount of students drop out. By the sophomore year, the real bad, or the serious non-students were starting to leave. Definitely by the middle of the junior year, there was, as a principal, you saw that attrition. So, the kids that were going into their senior year were kids that, were survivors of this, and they wanted to get through. So it's the attitudinal thing, and I have dozens of stories of kids starting, back in the 90s where things were changing. I could tell you about where their attendance really affected what's going to go on in their lives. It's because it's behaviors that I think are, for some kids, will become adult behaviors. I have a couple of friends that hired for, students during the summer, high school and college students. The number one criterion is you got to be there. And the number two is you got to be there on time if you're going to work for me. And I have a friend that has a construction company. He said, I tell the kids straight up, if you can't get there and get there on time, you don't have a job. And this is pretty much true today. I mean, so attendance and being punctual is very, very important. And for me, it's the human tragedy, because I see there are so many factors that are a part of why this doesn't happen. But I can remember at Pioneer High School, and this is a story I just want to tell because I think because it stuck with me. I have so many fond memories of teaching, but this was one of my saddest memories. I had a young lady who, in my junior writing class, wrote her first essay, and the kids were writing essays anywhere from 250 to 1,000 words over the course of a semester. There's this expository writing, and it was preparation for college and so on. And the first semester, or excuse me, the first quarter, the first essay she wrote an essay that I didn't believe she wrote it. And I have my way of asking her about the vocabulary words she used and the way she outlined the information and where she got her information, convinced that she wrote the essay. And she wrote several more that were astounding. I mean, she could have gone as far, at that point, that was college level, mid-college level work, and it was probably, better than most people in their junior year. But long and short of it was, she started to miss the second quarter more and more. And I didn't question her, but she ended up with a B. She had a very high A the first quarter. By the third quarter, I had to start questioning her because she was not attending school. So what happened was she was staying home and babysitting her little brother and sister. Something happened in the family, and this came out. And so she started missing, and by the time she finished last quarter, she had a D. And I was, had called home, talked to her mom, and really tried what I could do as a teacher to try and make sure that she got to school. But her mom's response to me, which was very sad, and I had absolutely no control over, was, and I think this was about the end of the first semester when I called the first time, Mom said, nobody in our family's ever graduated from school, so it's just, it wasn't a big deal. She ended up graduating from Pioneer High School, but she had to do it over the summer, the following summer. And to me, this was a young lady that could have gone to any college in the nation. I mean, they would have loved to have had her. She was a leader in the class, an inspiration, to others, helped others with the writing, and just couldn't do anything, And I know we have a lot of other stories that are like that, so I know how complex this is. So anyway, whatever we can do, I think the positive thing is, engaging students is very important, and that's the better approach. But if we have to take steps to, say, there are some consequences, I don't know what they are. I'm in favor of exploring those as well. So whatever we need to do to try and get more kids back into school, create that culture that says school's important, you should be here, it's a life experience, to be here and be here on time. So I don't know what the next step is for this, but I do think we have some work to do, and the numbers would show it. Again, thank you. That's a lot of good information. Really appreciate the report.
Thank you, Ron. Jen and then Frank.
Yeah, thanks for this really comprehensive report, and it's real clear that you're taking this very seriously, and you've put a lot of time and thought into this, and we should, because these are pretty troubling statistics. Our rates are pretty bad, and they're bad because we want kids in school and learning, and they're bad because I absolutely agree with Ron that we need to be teaching kids that they have to be present and be accountable and be, show up to things. That's like a big part of being successful in life is just showing up. And it's a big financial loss. But I think I'm on the same page as you, Diane, with respect to our response. I have a hard time punishing kids for not showing up because I don't think it's sort of advancing our goals. And I don't know that we can distinguish between the correlation between our 20-day policy and our truancy rate. There might be a correlation, but I don't know that there's causation. My guess is that, Rand, you're absolutely right, that there are a lot of kids gaming the system. But I imagine, though, that those kids are the kids who are actually doing just fine in school, the kids who are intentionally gaming the system. Right. Whereas it's the kids who are suffering personal problems at home, in their family life, in their home life, or personally, that are the ones who are just being absent because of all those reasons. And the last thing that those kids need is to be punished. But instead, their grades obviously will reflect their attendance rate. So I really like the focus on determining what the causes are and addressing those causes. And also, we really do need to, and I agree with Ron on this, we need to be thinking about creating, a climate of positive, good attendance and, school climates that encourage and reward attendance and where it's just sort of expected. Because I do think that is, kind of a cultural change. I know there was there were different thoughts about attendance when I was in high school than as there are now, or showing up to sports practice or whatever. Now there seems to be optional. That would have never occurred to me a lot of years ago that it was optional. So I think, looking at how we change that culture is really important. But I really applaud your comprehensive look at this, and think that's really a solution, is to look at it comprehensively and not sort of in a knee-jerk fashion, and figure out how we can tackle this. Thank you.
Frank?
Thank you. The report is excellent, but I have a thought. The report basically states where we are as a district, which really isn't acceptable. What would be helpful is to know where we should be. For a comparable district of our size, what's it normal or not? The numbers may be totally valid all up and down the state, for all I know. I have no way of comparing that. So what would be helpful to me is to know, where do we want to be in comparison with other districts? What's reasonable or not? That was sort of missing in the report. And then to ask the question about punishing for truancy, I'm for doing whatever is necessary to make it better, not worse. But I would hesitate eliminating a policy until I can see what's going to replace it. Thank you.
Bill?
A couple of things. Obviously, we're going to embark on a discussion over a period of time, and you're pulling out a tremendous amount of information from sites and committees, et cetera. So we'll look to the professionals to help shape how this moves forward. But philosophically, the concept of trying to get at the reason for the truancy is probably best exampled by Ron's specific story. That's not a student who would have cared, about whatever the policy is. They had something else that was totally outside the scope that was focusing on that, and how we deal with that and whether we can deal with that within the scope of community schools, within the scope of wraparound services, is really a focus that needs to be made. In the end, though, there need to be rules, and there are some kids that will respond to rules. And it's pretty clear that there are kids that are gaming the system, and so understanding what it is about the system that's easy to game, we need to change. And that seems to make some sense to me. So I'm looking forward to the process. I'm anxious next spring to look at this as a whole and get our policies in line with what we think we want to attain. I think Frank's sense of what is it that we want to obtain is important.
Thank you. Larry, you said you have a request?
Yes, can we look at some other districts, what they're doing, like maybe Napa and some comparable districts of our size?
I did an extensive amount of research on best practices. I have a lot of
Okay, great.
information. I do. And in terms of the comparison to the county and the state on circle page 9, there is the comparison there, so you can see that. And then I do want to say with regard to Mr. Cortopassi is exactly right on the T1, T2, and Ed code. We're not going to not follow Ed code. What I brought forward was what kind of interventions are happening in a coherent way between the T1 and the T2 letters.
And specific, are other districts like Napa counting a tardy at 30 minutes, or do they count them at 10?
30 minutes is Ed code.
That's Ed code, okay. Yeah. And then what about, how do they handle the absences? Do they go for 20 or do they go fewer?
We did an extensive amount of look at what school districts do the credit, losing credit along with the absences. And I don't actually have them with me because it's in between directors, so I had to get it from Gabe, but I will definitely bring those forward.
Thank you, I'd appreciate that.
There are many, many districts that do not. There are a few that do.
Okay.
I think Ron's story, which I really appreciated hearing, is it emphasizes why we need the creation of a truancy intervention plan. And I also agree with Jen that about who is probably gaming the system and who is probably not. The student that Ron described, she wasn't gaming the system. There's some deep problems in that household, and there's nowhere for that student to turn. So in this report, you say the last sentence, different best practice strategies and the partnerships will be piloted as we come to a consensus on the most effective and coherent way to ensure truancy is reduced and students are in school learning. I think that this is the start of us creating a truancy intervention, changing the policies to accommodate a plan that works. And I'm totally behind people being responsible for their own actions and taking responsibility for those consequences as well. But what this is talking about is addressing the kids who are out there and have no safety net. They have no one there to help them, and they don't know where to turn, and they end up dropping out. As far as kids who are gaming it, and I have no doubt that they're there, that and I do remember when we changed it from 10 to 20 days, and I remember because Kim McGrella did a presentation on that, and it was based around a budget crisis that we were in. I'm not all set in stone about a particular number of days or anything like that. What I am set in stone about is that we turn this, that we continue to go in the direction which is about supporting the entire student and working together and growing plans that support that student's family. Because if that doesn't happen, that student is not going to be successful. It's just impossible. And with the number of socioeconomically disadvantaged families that we have in our district, and English language learners whose parents are not comfortable coming to school or interacting with us and perhaps the services that we can provide, that's what we need to change. So I want to see this come back to us with next steps. I agree with Frank. What's it going to look like? And I think this is an exciting change and a direction we need to move in. So thank you for the report.
Thank you.
Okay, and let's move on to F5, a discussion item on adult education block grant.
Yes, thank you. I recently attended a meeting sponsored by SCO that, as many of you know, in recent times, the laws have changed and the legislature has put adult ed in the realm of the junior colleges. With AB 104, one of the changes that the legislature requests is that there's a consortium running kind of these funds and having decisions about adult education. One of the decisions the board has to make, and I'm bringing this forward as a discussion item, is do we want to participate as a member of that decision-making body in the consortium? I want to say clearly that we enjoy our partnership with the junior college in providing adult education on our campuses. We recognize the junior college as the experts in kind of understanding the needs of adults, providing for the needs of adults, and creating programs for these adult learners in our community. We enjoy the fact that at times this can take place on our campuses with our parents who are with us for other meetings. We happily share the data for them. One of the things about being a member of this consortium, it's new, so it could benefit us for at least 1 year to be a member of the consortium to make sure that the decisions being made at this level would not impact services to adults in our community, because as much as we can partner with the JC, we would continue to want to partner. I do not see a need, however, for the district to enter into teaching adult ed classes, offering adult ed classes. I do think that is best in the realm of the JC. They have proven their expertise in that area. They have staff and resources ready to go. I do want to make sure that we avail our sites and that our parents, when they request classes, have a vehicle to share what they would like. But I do think the expertise lies at the JC. A year trial in this consortium, I think, ultimately would not harm us, but I don't know that this is necessarily the realm of decision-making we feel we have to be in. And I leave that to a discussion with the board. I'll answer all the questions I can, and if I need to go collect more information from experts at the JC, I certainly will do that on your behalf.
Any board members with questions, comments? Frank?
Well, the fact that we would participate in this is intriguing, because one would assume that you would have some kind of control. On the other hand, all the experience that I've had with SCO, especially with CTE, is we've always been given the dirty end of the stick. We are not given the correct number of sections because we're a large district, and sections are spent for career technical education all around other places. It's been a battle for years. So we don't really bring to the table a significant amount of votes, right? So this is sort of the tail is wagging the dog kind of issue, and I see it repeating itself as what we've already experienced with career technical at SCO. On the other hand, one might say that we should be participating so we can help guide these programs to our district. But on the other hand, I don't think that's going to be really true, because we have the population that they need to educate anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're it. And countywide, this is ground zero for the types of programs that they're looking to try to create and offer. Thirdly, the district here made a significant decision to move away from adult ed. We didn't want to, because of all the issues that you sort of hinted to, salary schedules, contracts, training, location, and so forth. But we would never deny our parents, our adults, access to their programs. We could provide the data needed for this commission to do what they have to do to make it work for them. I see all those positive things. But I think we have so much on our plate. There's so much we need to do. Adding this doesn't really seem like it's a high priority for me as a board member, as a district representative. Would it hurt? Could it hurt? What would we shape? What would be the voting rights, the control, the programs? I think we can provide all these services through that agency without our participation.
I would say that for the first year, I agree with your line of questioning completely, and in fact asked many of those same questions because I was trying to understand really why we were being asked to participate, because I don't imagine that they'd want all the districts and every secondary district was there to draw down money to compete with providing the services. So absent that, the level of decisions we would be even versed in discussing Curriculum, no. I don't know necessarily what our adults in this community need, absent the parents we collect for meetings who share, oh, we would like this or we like that, and we like being a vehicle to tell the JC so they can offer them at that location because we believe we can create a viable class. Absent that, I'm not quite sure how we contribute. I will say, though, on the other side, this tension back and forth, on the other side, it is only 3 meetings that I would be the recommended person to serve on the consortium that I would have to go to, and we could reassess after 1 year. Again, this is new legislation. I'm not quite sure what decisions they'd be making. I don't believe we'd be harmed for the same reason, because we do hold the population base that they need to serve. But I did want to bring it to the board and allow you to direct.
I guess the nugget here for me is, what do we gain? And it's ambiguous that we gain anything. And given our experience with SCO before, I mean, it's factual. We don't tend to benefit from that.
And this would be the JC is kind of the leader of the consortium. SCO convened the meeting. It would be kind of the JC as the lead. But I do believe it will still be 1 district, 1 vote, which we do know that proportionally does not always serve our best interest.
That's exactly right. Thank you.
Bill and then Larry.
We obviously used to have an adult ed program within the district. It was one of many programs that went away because of cuts. It doesn't speak to the critical mission of the district. We actually have to change our mission to add that back in. We have one of the best JCs in the country that's here that I have a lot of faith in. They're leading the program. To the extent that you want to participate personally in 3 meetings to see what's going on, lend some assistance, I don't have a problem with that, but I don't want to throw a whole bunch of effort. We've got plenty of things to do. We saw some things today that suggest we've got a lot of focus that needs to be made. We have a number of other items tonight that require our focus, and I just don't want to lose focus. It's like adding something on just because you can do it. It doesn't make sense to me. So if you personally want to participate with the good relationships that we've got with other districts, with SCO, with JC, I have no issue with that. But I don't want to spend an inordinate amount of time with staff on this at this point.
Thank you. Larry?
Well, I pretty well agree with that. I think with our relationship with the junior college, they're very responsive to the needs of our parents. I'm thinking of our English language classes. They offer those all around the city. When it comes to the type of programs that we used to offer, I think they offer those types of programs. I'm trying to think back of something that was unique about our adult ed, other than perhaps they were free now, and maybe the junior college is $20, whatever their tuition is. But those adult classes are not heavily, are not that expensive either. So I'm trying to think of why we would want to offer our own adult ed classes, and I really don't come up with an answer.
And I am not recommending that we would do that. And just to be clear, the legislature has placed the funding at the JC level, right? They are not offering, again, funding to the K-12 systems. And these programs can only serve over 18-year-olds. This isn't concurrent. This is only 18 years old and over. It's very defined.
Yeah, I think it speaks for ourselves. We have stuff on our own plate.
Yeah, let them do it.
We're educating K through 12.
Okay, so I'm hearing that we are not in support of this. Am I correct? Yes, okay, that's pretty much
Thank you.
unanimous. Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to F6, discussion item on the facilities master plan update, including electronic security door locks.
Okay, thank you. As we've done since last spring, a couple of times, periodically, we bring forward a representative from QKA, and tonight Aaron Jobson is here from QKA to provide the board with the progress of the facilities master plan.
Thanks, Steve. And thank you, Superintendent Shields and the members of the board for having me here today to give you a very quick update on what we've been up to and where we're going from here. As you may remember, we started a process of facilities master planning last spring. Like Steve said, we did facilities assessments of every one of your schools, and that was a process of us touring those schools with members of our team, members of our engineering consultants, to really get a good idea of what condition those facilities are in and have our kind of professional assessment of that. We also held 3 educational facilities committee meetings to start to develop what we then were calling an educational specifications, and what we've decided to kind of shift to educational facilities guidelines to make sure that the intent is very clear that they're focused on facilities. We had a few meetings about those in May, but didn't get the level of participation and kind of the broad spectrum of stakeholder views that we really need for that process. Just not a good time of year to do that, really. And so we kind of put pause on that and took a break over the summer, and so we're coming back now to really restart all those processes and move forward with the facilities master planning. So there are 3 things that we're really working on right now. The first is that educational facilities committee meetings. We start the first of 4 of those meetings on Tuesday. And we have a much broader group of committee that Steve and the rest of the staff of the district have been working hard to put together, really, and make sure that that represents all the stakeholders across the district. The goal of that committee is really to develop what we're going to call the educational guidelines, which will be an overall standard for kind of the basic of what every school should have and how we address providing the right kind of facilities to meet the district goals and objectives, what's been illustrated in the strategic plan and elsewhere, and support the educational programs. And that'll serve as kind of the baseline for moving into the next phase, which is setting up individual site committee meetings at every school, which we'll be doing 2 meetings at every school over the remainder of the fall and into early next year. And then one of the things we're doing in preparation for those meetings is taking all the data that we've developed from our facilities assessments and condensing that into kind of a 1-page summary for each school that will go into the eventual facilities master plan. What will also be something that we can give to that committee when we start, so we can let them know, this is all the work we've already done. These are all the things that we know about your school already. Let's spend the time that we have together really getting deeper insight into that. They don't need to tell us that the restrooms at the high school need to be repaired. We know that already. We can get more into how can we really support 21st century learning at this school. So we want to we're working on putting those together in preparation for those meetings. And then one of the things that we just wanted to highlight briefly is one of the things that we noticed whenever we look at school sites these days, one of the things we look at is safety and security. And we use kind of a methodology that's been developed over the last, I think, 25 or 30 years, called crime prevention through environmental design. And so that really is a holistic approach to looking at safety and security and looking at it from a number of different perspectives. And so that's something that we'll do and we'll discuss with each committee and with the Educational Facilities Committee. But one of those things that we look at is classroom security. And specifically the locks in the classroom, and making sure that we have what are called classroom security locks that can be locked by the teacher from the inside of the room in the event of a lockdown situation. And those are actually required now by state law on all new facilities. They've been standard practice for about 10 years now on any real school project, and something that, not surprisingly, not all of your facilities have, and that's true of many schools across the state. But something that we will undoubtedly include in the facilities master plan, that will undoubtedly be high on the list, as student safety and security is always high on the list. And so that's something that, I think the proposal is to maybe take a look at moving that forward quickly. It's something that we can do relatively quickly. It's something that we know is going to be a high priority, and we're always looking for those opportunities to get those in place sooner rather than later. So that's basically the update for now, and I'd be happy to take any questions that you might have.
Ron, and then Frank.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly disagree with that concept about putting the locks in. The last discussion we had, we talked about selecting certain schools or selecting places where we felt they were more vulnerable. And there's a lot more to the issue than just putting in, electric locks. And I feel that, if you want to talk about safety, you would talk about, pest infestation, you can talk about quality of air, you can talk about bungalows that have mold. So there's a lot of things you can do. So to blanket put locks in across the school district as a first step because we're all going to need them, I don't agree with that concept at all. And I really feel it goes against the spirit of the process that we've been talking about in terms of letting the sites develop their own set of needs and so on. So I would, just to let the board know, not agree with that proposal.
Frank?
Well, I think the board has expressed in the past a significant amount of interest in security door locks and in general security plans in general with the facility sites. So I would like to have a more robust conversation at some point about where the board really wants to be, and should the board want to expedite that or integrate it in with something else should really be a board decision. But it seems to have attracted a lot of attention over the last couple of years here at the board.
Socorro?
I just want to clarify, they were actually asked to present it in this manner so you could have that discussion that you're talking about right now. We can wait, and there's no issue to that, but we don't have to, and we have talked about locks at several points throughout at least my tenure here, and this really is the opportunity for the board to have that discussion should it hold a priority and be addressed now. All of the things, Ron, that you spoke about, I'm sure will come out in terms of safety. So this is the one issue, though, that has been the most discussed, and this is the opportunity for the board to consider doing this. Following the board discussion, what we will do is bring back an item for you to vote on at the next meeting. But we did want to give you the discussion so that you could feel confident taking your vote and expressing your opinion, whatever that is. But again, I do want you to know that this was a request of them. This isn't kind of subverting the facilities master plan process. But I did want to give the board the option to decide if they want to wait for the facilities master plan and then follow with the locks, or if they want to, for this item, which has been such a robust discussion, do them concurrently, knowing that it will come out in the facilities master plan.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, Mr. Kristoff. All those things that you mentioned are exactly the things that we want to talk about, and that we will talk about, and that security is obviously much more than door locks. So, and every one of those things from mold to, all the other things you mentioned are topics that we'll be discussing for sure, at the district level and at each site level.
So now I'm going to go to Bill, Jen, then Larry.
I support the concept of getting the doors that do not have security locks on them, put security locks on them. And the purpose of doing that was to provide teachers an ability and other staff an ability to secure their room in case of emergency. I think the jump to 2,500 locks, electronic locks in the district isn't something I would support either until the sites all told me that that was a priority among all the other priorities that exist. One can make a very good argument that electronic locks are nice to have because you can change them when teachers change or when staff changes, and it's easy to deal with. You don't have keys floating around. But the purpose of getting locks on all of the doors was not because we had a lost key somewhere, it's because of an emergency. And the person that causes an emergency isn't somebody who's going to have a lost key. It's a person that's actually got bigger problems and isn't looking for a key, but they've got something in their hands that doesn't matter whether you have a key or you don't have a key. So I think we're jumping the gun with respect to, and that was a bad, I didn't even consider that was a lousy pun, I apologize. We're going too fast relative to electronic locks throughout the district. We haven't had that discussion. I'm not in favor of having that discussion in advance of the facilities master plan process that were in place. If what was brought forward was an RFP to get security locks done on those locks that don't have those security locks, I'd be in favor of doing that.
Jen. Thank you for the report and the update. It will come as no surprise to my colleagues that this is an issue that I am passionate about and have brought back on numerous occasions. And my position is that I don't care whether we have electronic locks or key locks or magnets on the locks that are not fire-rated locks. I don't care what kind of locks we have, but I think that we need to have locks on every single one of our classrooms, and I think that it should be the #1 priority. It can be done relatively quickly. I don't know that there's any of us who live in a house that in a time of danger we can't run into and shut the door behind us and lock the door. I don't know that any of us work in offices or live in houses where in a time of danger we actually have to go outside to put ourselves in the line of danger in order to lock our doors. We expect our teachers, I want our teachers to feel safe in their classrooms. We expect our teachers to protect their students, and so I think not providing a lock that they can lock from inside without putting themselves in danger is absolutely unconscionable. And I think we have waited too long for everybody to feel safe in their classroom for that, in that specific way. I hope that none of our schools ever are in a situation where they have to use those in that way, but if they ever are, whether it's a real threat or a perceived threat that could scare the heck out of somebody, I want our teachers to feel safe and be able to be quiet in their classroom and quietly lock the door without walking into a hallway and facing the danger. So my position is, probably not surprisingly, is that I think we should do locks as fast as possible, and but I don't care how they're done. They can be done the cheapest way possible, or electronic locks, or whatever. But I think it should be brought back, and people should vote on whether or not we want, our teachers behind locked doors, or doors that they can lock from the inside.
Larry.
Well, yes, I think we need to hear from the people who are in the classroom who want these secure locks. And I think we have to hear from the sites. So I'm not for, even though, yes, it's a safety issue, but I think we don't want to, as a board member, I don't want to preempt the decision-making process. And is there a cheaper lock out there? There was a committee once on locks, but I don't remember all the type of issues. Do we need them at every site? That type of thing. So that's where I am. I want to hear from the constituency, the people who are going to be using the locks.
Ron?
I'm sorry to belabor this, but we had a report that essentially said, when we concluded talking about this it's been a while since we've had this discussion, but it was very good, and I think there was a lot of thoughtful comments made about it. But I think the idea was that we didn't, putting a lock was not necessarily the way to secure a particular room or facility, because, like, for example, you walk down the corridor at Montgomery, you go down the center there's glass everywhere. I mean, so putting the lock on the door may not be the best way to secure it. The concept was, how do we make each campus secure? And what is it we do if we're talking about the ultimate evil, here is what we're doing. And I think it's a more complex problem than just putting a lock on a door. So that's the discussion I would like to have. If security is our #1, goal here, each facility is going to be a little different. Maybe the money would be better spent a different way. So I don't think it's a simple solution. So I hope we have a discussion where we can talk about that, maybe bring back the report we had last time and the information we had last time, and have that available as well, because I think that we may be rushing here to doing something that may not really be, going to be achieving the goal that we are talking about. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Jen?
I just want to respond to your comments, Ron, about there are obviously other ways to secure a campus, and there are lots of ways in which we feel safe, or different ways we want to be safe. But in the studies that have followed, school shootings, or or there's, Santa Barbara school stabbings, that was also multiple victim. The number one recommendation following those incidents, the number one recommendation are security locks that can be locked inside. That is consistent. It is the number one recommendation. It's also, relative to, campus-wide changes, relatively inexpensive. And there are ways we can do it cheaper than this. If the price tag is the issue, although if there's an incident, I would hate for somebody to read back this transcript and talk about whether we're quibbling over $1 million or $2 million out of, $250 million bond money. But it's the number one thing and recommendation. So I have a hard time wondering why I have a hard time understanding why we're the only district that seems to think that this is not a good idea, because I think it's common practice that district after district is moving towards locks, and it is in fact the law. We're going to do it eventually. So if we're going to do it eventually, why not make sure that our teachers and our kids are safe as soon as possible?
Okay, so what I've heard so far is that everyone is against bringing an RFP back, except for Jen. Is that correct?
No, I don't think it is. I tried to draw a distinction there, and I apparently wasn't very successful at it. I don't support this RFP coming back, but I don't even hear Jen supporting this RFP coming back, that we ought to spend $3.75 million on electronic locks throughout our district. We had a report some time ago that there were X number of locks in our district that didn't have the ability to lock it from the inside. I would like to see an RFP to fix those locks, not with electronic locks, with the same locks that exist elsewhere. And if then there is a widespread support within the district sites as they go out and deal with facilities, that we change the whole, the whole place to electronic locks, then we'll look at that. Somehow I don't think that's going to happen. But I do think we have a responsibility, because we haven't finished the job of getting inside security locks on the balance of the doors in the district. Okay. And I'd like that to come back to understand what that cost is, because my memory fades as I get older, but I'm pretty confident that it wasn't $3.7 million.
But the question that I asked was, is everyone except for Jen, maybe I should include Jen, is everyone against bringing this RFP back the way it's being suggested here? And what I just heard you say is, yes, you'd be against that.
Well, I think everybody is, including
I'm
Jen.
not, okay? So I was trying to wrap up and get in my 2 cents as well. I don't believe in doing a patchwork of locks across the district. I think it's a waste of money, because you're going to now do a study as to what locks are there, what locks we need. Then, now, are these locks good enough? Well, now they have these locks, maybe we should have those locks. And I don't think it should be based on the site decision on what they think, what the site thinks their needs are, because we know horrible, hideous, unexpected things happen in all kinds of places. So I think we should be prepared across the board, and I think the easiest way to administer, maintain, and stay current is to have a universal system. Now, do we do it now, or do we do it in conjunction with the whole master plan? That's what I think, that's the question that I have. But I do not agree with, we're going to do a patchwork. I think it's a waste of time and money. And I don't agree with, well, we'll let the sites tell us what their priorities are. I believe the sites should tell us what their priorities are in many, many areas, but not this one. And because at the end of the day, it comes down to this board and what we've decided to do. And the action we've taken to protect every single student in this district, and every teacher, every administrator, every clerical worker. You know what I'm trying to say. So I feel very, very strongly that it doesn't have to be this lock that's being brought before us today, but it has to be universal. I'm not taking any more questions. We're wrapping up now, because this can go on all night. It's very, very clear that people do not want this, and we need to have more discussion about that. That's fine, but I got my 2 cents in.
Donna, I just need to clarify my position, because Bill did kind of get it wrong. And he sort of wrapped up my position, and I just want to make it very clear.
Okay, we're on round 3 here now. Okay.
I'm sorry, but
I know it's
You want a universal system of electronic locks. Do you want that?
What I would like.
Every door in the district will get changed.
I think the very best thing would be to have a universal system.
Okay, so you want to do that RFP?
So I think the very best thing would be a universal system, whatever that universal system is, but it sounds like the most modern thing, and the thing that would be recommended by the experts is an electronic system. I think that would be the very best thing and the best investment. So I would be for this. But number one, what I am for is for our kids and teachers to be safe in their classrooms ASAP. ASAP, to feel safe in their classrooms and be able to lock their door behind them. So if I didn't have 4 votes on the board for electronic locks, then I'd say, I don't care how we do it. Let's just do it, because let's protect our kids and teachers. That's my position. Yes, I think this is the best way. We should do it, and it's surprising to me that we don't have 4 votes to say this, because it's a drop in the bucket and it's for our kids and teachers' safety. But if we got to do it some other way, we'll do it some other way. Larry?
I'm just going to clarify my position. My position is, what other options are there to make the school safe? As I remember on a committee, wasn't this big price tag or other? I mean, you need to be able to lock it from the inside. Does it need to be electronic locks? So that's where I am.
So I'm still hearing that we don't have, that we're not going to do this now. There's no reason to bring an RFP back now, is what I'm hearing.
I disagree. We're not going to do this RFP, that's for sure.
Bring the other one.
But I'd like a poll of the board. I'm interested in having the item that we had before that told us that there are locks in this district that do not have the ability to lock it from the inside, and I'm interested for an RFP to put the locks in that the rest of the schools have. So it is kind of universal from that standpoint, in the sense that everybody has the ability to lock it from the inside. We've had that information. We've received it before. I'd like it back because I'm interested in an RFP to do that job.
So what I would like to do is bring back several options for the board to vote on, because I do think it's important that you take a vote so that kind of discussion points are clarified and everybody feels they've had their chance to express their opinion. I do think that our information is outdated, and I'm not sure that it's valid in terms of thinking about how we move forward, which is why I think the RFP is necessary, to get us the information you need, because the RFP does not commit us to go forward, but at least gives you an idea of what moving forward looks like, costs, and the time it would take, the materials necessary. And I do think there should be some consideration to becoming modern. We can get all types of locks. I think Donna said it very eloquently. I think we need a universal lock, and where the world is going is electronic key locks. Maybe we're not ready for it, and maybe that'll be our next bond series in 20 more years. But these bond dollars were to get our schools more modern. They're not going to get super fancy, but they are to get more modern. And this is safety will not be by consensus. It will be almost by decree, because there are things we have to do for ADA, for all of those other reasons. And so we will have several options which you can look at and weigh and then decide. But I do think the vote is important so that everybody feels clearly represented in how they're feeling.
Okay, so how should I word this? What should I ask to bring it back as an RFP?
Well, I told you we're bringing it back. So, and that was in this as a discussion item, that based on our discussion, we would bring forward something for the board to take a vote.
But now you're going to bring back something more than just this universal.
We're gonna consult with people and discuss, listen to this again, and use this discussion information to frame the options we bring forward.
Can I mention one option I'd like to have mentioned?
No.
I'll mention it to you after the meeting, Socorro.
Yeah, just tell Socorro.
We can certainly follow up.
I'm sorry, Socorro, go ahead.
If you have further questions or points, we can certainly follow up. We will need to step back and speak to experts and find a way to frame this that it makes sense to everyone and gives you options. So what I'd like to do is put it before you and then maybe schedule time once we have the options. If there are further questions you want, either one-on-one or here in public, that we be prepared for them so that you can make an informed decision.
Superintendent, I just was going to say that last report we had, I believe, to bring the locks up to safety standards, they would be hodgepodge, was like 1.7, not 3.7. So I think that might be a starting place for us to have that discussion if we could bring back that information. Thank you.
Okay, Larry. All right. Go ahead, say what you want to say. Larry.
Thank you. I think the new locks don't necessarily need to be, could be electronic if we have to put a new lock on. I'd like to have that option in there. Then the old locks, you know, or we can do it cheaper. So that's what I wanted to get across. Doesn't have to be universal.
Thank you. Okay, so you have the direction you need. I'm sorry I didn't keep that, I didn't control my own, never mind, you guys all know what I mean. F7 is an action item, request for proposal for the purchase and installation of football field lights at Pioneer High School. Mr. Reichman.
Thank you. On July 22nd, information was provided to you as an information item, kind of brought you up to speed on where we're at and how we got there. And so at that time in that information, the next step was that we would come back and ask for a request for proposal. And if it's the pleasure of the board to do that, what we'll do is that concurrently we'll work with the two main fundraising organizations that are associated with Pioneer High School to work on a funding commitment from them to fully fund the lights. And during that, the district would pay for the initial study costs, like I said, and then working towards the goal of having the funding plan in place.
I move approval. That was moved by Director Close, seconded by Director Carl. Roll call vote, please.
Director Close?
Aye.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Hanel?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
President Jay?
Aye, thank you very much. Item F8, action item, approval of unaudited actual financial activity for 2014-15. Mr. Eichmann and Ms. Bischoff.
Thank you. And I'm going to turn this over to Carolyn to go through the information.
Thanks. Good evening, President Jay, Superintendent Shields, Board. You'll have to pardon me, I'm fighting with a cold and it's winning. I just wanted to point out on the unaudited actuals that we brought you the estimates in June, and we finished within 5% of those estimates. A good portion of that is going to be carryover to the sites. So some of that will go back to the sites, but we did end the year with a positive position. We did not deficit spend last year, which is always a good thing. The ending balance will also help absorb the raise that we had at the end of the year. So that's just the pointers I wanted to put on last year's budget. As we go into the current year, in the narrative that I gave you, I pointed out that we are starting the year with a higher enrollment than we projected. So when we bring you our first interim update, we will be updating those numbers for you and increasing our revenue projections. The other item that we have for you tonight is the annual GAN limit. The GAN limit was brought into place in, bear with me here if I remember, 79, thank you very much. 1979, it placed spending limits on governmental agencies, which a school district is one, and we must annually adopt this limit. We are within our GAN limit levels, so we don't need to do any other additional actions other than adopt the resolution for this evening. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Christoph, seconded by Director Hanel. Roll call vote, please.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Hanel?
Aye.
Director Close?
Aye.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
President Jay?
Aye. Thank you. And then F9 is an action item, approval of textbook for Cook Middle School.
So moved. Oh, sorry. So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Hanel, seconded.
Is there, I have a question, is there any staff input that we need beyond what we've already received? Thank you.
Moved by Director Hanel, seconded by Director Carl. Roll call vote, please.
Director Hanel?
Aye.
Dr. Carl?
Aye.
Dr. Close?
Aye.
Dr. Christoph?
Aye.
Dr. Pugh?
Abstain?
President Jay?
Aye. F10, approval of textbook for Cook Middle School, History Alive.
So moved.
Second. Same question. Thank you.
She nodded her head. Go ahead.
Moved by Director Hanel, seconded by Director Carl. Roll call vote, please.
Director Hanel?
Aye.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Close?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Ron?
I'm sorry. Yeah, aye.
Director Pugh?
Abstain?
President Jay?
Aye. Now we move on to F11, which is the first reading of the administrative regulations in the 6000 series, home and hospital instruction. Mr. Mazzaro.
President Jay, Superintendent Shields, board members, this is the first reading of a modification to the administrative regulations for home and hospital per CSBA. Brings us to legal conformity, state laws, and we'll administer it coming in its appropriate manner. We'll come back in 2 weeks with a final version on this.
Before I turn it over to the board, I have a speaker card. Rosalinda Brady.
Hi, I'm Rosalinda Brady. I realize it's late, but still, it is what it is, right? I've been a home teacher for many years, and I'm very proud of the work that I do for all of the students whom I have had the privilege to serve. I think of this program that provides excellent support for students, all students, who are medically unable to go to the various regular schools. We teach our students many subjects and can cover the work because of the one-to-one teaching style, which makes the individual students accountable for their learning. It is effective also because the students are not subject to being in a class with their peers. They excel uniquely without their feelings of superiority or inferiority. I have 2 responses that I've received from parents over the years, and I know I've done this previously, but these 2 are a couple of different ones. This first one is from a student who is a very academic, honors student, the one that I received a few years ago. Dear Ms. Brady, thank you very much for writing me a recommendation letter. I wrote a letter for him for the colleges. I appreciate the efforts you have taken on my behalf, more than can be expressed. While you were my teacher, you went above and beyond the responsibilities of an educator to bring me challenging work and to modify assignments so that they would best fit me and my way of learning. The 4 months I spent on home and hospital were some of the most academically rewarding I have ever experienced. I am pleased to report that I have been offered admission to UC Berkeley, UCLA, UC San Diego, UC Santa Barbara, UC Santa Cruz, Boston College, Occidental College, Trinity College, Santa Clara University, and the University of Southern California. And then he goes on to say that he, at Occidental, awarded him a scholarship worth $70,000 over 4 years. And this is just to show you that, we teach a wide spectrum of students. This is the high-end student, so to speak, and yet he felt that he got an excellent education being on home and hospital for the time. At the other end of the spectrum, we have a student who is an at-risk student that generally got D's and F's on his grades, and he responded in this case where we asked for the parents to respond to how well the program worked for them. And his comment, the father said that his child said that he learned more from the teacher in the short time that she was with him than in school. So that isn't to say anything about the school. It's just the difference, as I said, between the comprehensive high school, the fact that they are in a classroom of 30 students, and it's just very difficult. But this student received the benefit of that one-on-one learning and kind of bumped that student up to a higher level, accountability and getting their work done, because I was expecting them to have their work done. So just in closing, I want you all to realize how invaluable this program is to our students who are unable to go to school, either short-term or long-term for medical reasons. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming down and sharing that with us, and thank you for your service to our students. Okay, turning it back to the board. This is a discussion item. Anybody have questions or comments or concerns? Ron?
No, I'm sorry.
No, no, go ahead.
Bill? No, he was pointing.
I was pointing to you.
He was trying to tell me that you had your hand up.
Oh, okay, fine. The question I had was, this is a first reading of the AR, but we don't approve AR, so I'm not exactly, there's a policy, but the policy was all lined out.
Right.
So are we intending to have a policy come forward, or we've got an AR that with CSBA has given us language, so we comply with the law. We're not changing the program, but we're complying with the law.
Right.
Is there a policy that's going to come forward at some
There's
point?
not, and CSBA's response is the policy, when there is direct education code that directs a district to perform a certain action, there's no policy variations, and so they don't provide a policy on this because it's straight out of education code. Okay. And so then they're just putting the regulations in place to make sure there is conformity back to that same education code.
Okay, so I guess my view would be, you've given us the AR. Thank you. I appreciate the CSBA pulling that together, and we're following the law.
Yeah.
I'm not sure this needs to come back.
No.
I was going to suggest that you still could have a board policy that's general in nature to reference it, because there's always a policy to an AR. So I would encourage us to have, and you can, just because CSBA makes a recommendation that you don't need one doesn't mean you can't have one.
Okay.
And so
We'll quote you on that, Director.
Yeah, you can. You certainly
The
can.
policy would simply be the education code.
We'll figure something out and bring it back for you. We'll repeat ed code and reference ed code.
But the AR doesn't need to come back.
No,
No.
but we include it just for information only, so you see the breadth of the details.
Thank you, everyone. We're adjourned.